Good morning, everybody. Happy New Year. We will ask all the Regents members to take their seat. Dr. Tarver, my man. Good to see you. As a reminder to everyone, our meetings are being streamed live. Please turn your cell phones off, and don't forget to use your microphone so the audience can hear you. Some of us may not need one. This is a reminder that this meeting we will conduct as a committee of the whole, and therefore all members will vote on the recommendation on each motion. Our system representative colleagues who serve on the standing committees may also vote on the matters that usually become for the committees they serve on. So now we'll go to roll call. Ms. Christine, would you please call the roll?
Regent Adley.
Here.
Regent Chabert.
Here.
Regent David.
Here.
Regent Ewing.
Here.
Regent Jewell. Regent Levy.
Here.
Regent May.
Here.
Regent McDonald.
Here.
Regent Meir. Regent Perez.
Here.
Regent Pryor.
Here.
Regent Seal.
Here.
Regent Solomon.
Here.
Regent Temple.
Here.
Regent Tennyson. Regent Weil.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Yeah, he's in the back. Yeah. Okay, we'll now move on to public comments. Are there any public comments? Any public comments? Okay. Next, we're going to go to swearing in of officers, so this can be, we could all be official. If the officers in the executive committee will gather down at the podium, who's going to swear us in?
Robin.
And we have Robin here to swear us in. Okay, Carlos David. Oh, that's a good name. Carlos David. My name on that born.
Sonia. Executive committee.
Want to do the officers first and then the executive committee?
Collis.
Come on, Carlos David.
Okay, if y'all would please raise your hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
Morning, Chabert.
Do solemnly swear or affirm
I solemnly swear and affirm
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and the Constitution and laws of this state.
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as
and perform all the duties incumbent upon me as Chairman.
according to the best of my ability and understanding,
According to the best of my ability and understanding,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations.
Now y'all stay together for the executive.
For the executive committee. Yeah. Gary, you want to get that to God? Right. Wait, move on. Get that to God.
Okay, please raise your right hand. I state your name.
I
Do solemnly swear or affirm
solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
that I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and the Constitution and laws of this state,
and that I will faithfully and impartially discharge
and I will faithfully and impartially discharge
best of my ability and understanding.
according to the best of my ability and understanding.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Tony. Tony.
All right, we're back on track. I want to say thank you to all the members of the board and the Special Executive Committee and the new officers. We're looking forward to serving another year. We're looking forward to all the challenges that we face to bring higher education to a level like no other in Louisiana. And as I tell everybody all the time, never forget, it's all about the students. I want to congratulate Regent Philip May, our newest member, and everybody has a new form to sign, I think, oath of office form. In front of you, please sign it. Okay. I'm going to ask for a motion to approve the minutes of December 11th meeting. You received your minutes. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Moved by Collis, second by Regent Seal. Any objection? Hearing none, motion passed. No, let me get through. I just thought we're gonna do this. Real quick, members, we've updated the committee assignments for this year. Please take a look at your assignments in your packet and let me know if you have any questions. If there are no questions, can I get a motion to ratify the committee assignments for 2020? Moved by Regent Seal, second by Regent Temple. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion passes. The assignments will be updated on our website and relevant board materials will be put on. Renaming Sponsored Program Standing Committee. There's a notice of proposed change to bylaws with board consideration action plan. I asked Kerry Robinson to provide a few comments of the renaming of the Sponsored Program Standing Committee. Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you, sir. Happy New Year, everybody. First, the current name of the Sponsored Program Standing Committee is what it is because our unit manages statewide agreements that are sponsored by federal agencies like NSF, NASA, NIH, and so forth, as well as we sponsor programs through the administration of the Board of Regents Support Fund. The rationale for the revision of our name from sponsored programs to research and sponsored initiatives is that the work that's overseen by the Sponsored Programs Committee is much broader than just the state and federal programming that we administer. We are, the committee and the unit are responsible for research policy. Over the last several master plans, it has fallen to sponsored programs to draft the research component and to monitor and oversee the implementation of the research components. We monitored and scored the research component of the GRAD Act. We staffed the Advisory Committee for the Advancement of Research in Louisiana, which is a statewide research committee hosted by the Board of Regents. We'll also be organizing and staffing the annual Board of Regents Research Summit, which will kick off in the spring of 2020. This name change will make explicit also that the board is deeply and continuously engaged in university-based research and related questions of economic development and industry and university partnerships. That's something that came up quite a bit in discussion of the master plan, and this will make explicit where that responsibility lies within the agency. This only serves as notice of this action per the bylaws. We have to notice this before at the meeting prior to board action, so we are bringing this for consideration and for action in February. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Hearing none, I think we're good. Thank you, Karen. We appreciate it. Now I'm going to take out of order. We, during this past legislative session, Senator Barra Peacock passed a resolution asking the Board of Regents to study the feasibility of having a dental school in North Louisiana. And he's here today. The report was due, and he asked that we just receive the report and not take any action. I'm going to let him go on to his reasoning why.
Thank you, Chairman Schreiber, Dr. Reed, and members. It's good to be here. Senate Resolution 190 by myself and Senator Carver is to study the feasibility of a dental school in North Louisiana. I understand that the report is being delivered to you today, but I would like you to delay taking any action on this report until all the information is provided to you. I understand that the LSU system specifically has some information coming to you. So before y'all make any kind of movement to gather all the information, I know the resolution asks for the report to be reported to the Senate Education Committee by 90 days before session, which we start March the 9th. That is merely, this is an urgent request.
Correct.
And with that, I would like y'all to take all the information in before y'all make any action or decisions on that. So that is my request of y'all to, please don't take that literally, that we need to have it definitely 90 days or before the session, that to gather all the information from the LSU system and all the parties involved. I've met with hospitals in my community, and they've talked about how many people come to their emergency rooms for dental problems.
Right.
And it's something that we really need to look at. I know funding is an issue, and it's something that hopefully with pulling in all the information that can also be addressed. So that's my request of this board, is to not take any action. You accept the report, but bring in all the information before you make any decisions.
We understand there was some stuff that was not reported to us, and I'm going to let the Chairman Warner, Kalo, you had address what, from the LSU side, what we're looking at.
Thank you, and Senator, thank you for coming today. I appreciate it so much, and Chairman, I appreciate the opportunity to speak. The LSU system would appreciate the time to review our information before it's delivered to the Board of Regents, and then come back and have a robust conversation about the recommendations that come out of all the studies and reports, that this body can make an informed decision with all the information available. So thank you so much for allowing us this time.
Thank you for pulling all the information from your system and getting an informed decision.
Yeah, and
And
when
Mr.
we
Chair-
get to that committee, we'll do a little slide presentation.
And Mr.
I wanted to
Chair-
go ahead.
I'd like to make a comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I thank you, Senator Barrow Peacock from Shreveport, my district, for coming down. I know it's a long drive to make this appearance you made last night, but it's an important issue for our community. I would like to, and I appreciate the board chair and Dr. Reed and LSU for taking the time to allow additional information to come in. And because this is people were dismayed by the report that came and felt that it wasn't, some information was not given. I do want to take this time, because you never know when it's your time your last time to say something. But I do want to say that, Barrow traveled down here 4.5 hours last night, as did I, as do anybody that comes to these meetings from Shreveport. As you guys know, it's a long drive. When y'all had to come to Shreveport for our board meeting, we barely made a quorum, had to pull Mr. Brown out the crowd to make a quorum. And I can't imagine the travel expenses for that month for all the board members and staff that made that long trip to the rural parts of the state that this study is about. I looked at the group of people that were interviewed in the preparation of the Board of Regents draft, and there was one omission. That's the students. There's 10 students from Shreveport in those classes of 75 people. They're the ones that endure that debt of having to move physically, their husbands, to New Orleans. And just as, some of them may not want to travel to Shreveport, Barrow and I can tell you, people in Shreveport don't want to have to move down to New Orleans. So those people were not given a voice in this. A dental school costs $75,000 a year on a loan. And it's mentioned some scholarship they give for rural participation. There's 2 people on the scholarship. Why is that? That needs to be explored in the report. It's because the scholarship funds 2 years of tuition. A dental school takes 4 years. The tuition is $28,000. Fees are almost equal to the tuition. So in their 50 years of running this med school, they haven't figured out that they need to offer tuition and fees to help attract people to come to rural areas. And the chart within the draft shows that there's 0 clinics in North Louisiana run by the LSU Dental School that's supposed to be for the state of Louisiana. So I ask you, Ms. Werner and LSU, to take a good look at what's been going on for the past 50 years as you make decisions on what was the question of Senator Tarver and Peacock was what would be the impact on rural care if there was a dental school in northwest part of this state. There is no dental school in Arkansas. And I'd like for the next hearing on this issue, for whoever's the head of LSU New Orleans Dental School to come here and explain to the taxpayers and the public what have they been doing for the past 50 years to bring dental care to rural parts above Alexandria, year by year. And that should be a question he should come prepared to answer, and maybe his predecessors. And if any of y'all board members can't make the meeting, I can probably give you the answer: nothing. Another thing, the report, and I appreciate the staff, they worked hard to make this report. They worked over the holidays, and they worked with what they were given. There is a plan for funding of the dental school. I heard the other billionaire of North Louisiana, of Louisiana, pledge $50 million in 4 years for this dental school. That's not in this report. I heard another a leading citizen, the CEO of Willis Knighton, said he will provide the dental equipment for the dental school. That's not in this report. And maybe that's what LSU, the staff at the med school in Shreveport needs to present in a report. And maybe our staff did not know that, but I knew that. These are important things that need to be covered on who's going to pay for it. How much does it cost to run a dental school? I think those things need to be need to be reviewed by the powers that be at LSU. But there was a feeling when this report came out of geographic bias. And it came out in phone calls I received immediately. Now, we all board members get these emails with every article about the Board of Regents in the state. Well, I checked this morning, they didn't cover the article in the Shreveport Times that came out where people were mad about this. And all the Facebook comments. So we're asking you, we thank you for coming forward, coming down, making that drive for this appearance. People feel there's a hold on Baton Rouge to New Orleans, and that our leaders, President Gallo, guys at Tech, they have to be magicians to get things. They have to go find something nobody else is doing, cyber command, cyber security, whatever, to get something done. They can't get the traditional professional programs in North Louisiana. They're all held here, Baton Rouge, New Orleans, 2 law schools in Baton Rouge, 2 law schools in New Orleans. and just fill in the blank of the programs. And they have to come down here to put their voice forward, make that long drive. I don't know the president of UNO and all these other schools. They don't have to do that. But Dr. Henderson, Dr. Gallo, they have to come down here and put their face forward and then ask and grovel for crumbs. That's the way people feel. So I just want to say that today and thank
Thank you,
the
Regent.
senator for coming, and we'll go forward on this issue. Thank you.
Yeah, we, of course, as you know, the staff can only go with the information they have. There's a lot of information that's brought to us in the last 24 hours we had no knowledge of, and that's why we're gonna go ahead and just delay it until we get all the information. But more importantly, to let LSU deal with their internal schools, and then come back and report to us. So thank you so much for being here, Senator, and we'll work with you every step of the way, as you know.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you very
you.
much for taking me out of order, and I'm on my way back to home to meet with the student council, 4th and 5th graders, and we're going to show them how the legislation is passed. We're going to decide on the official pizza of Louisiana, and we'll see if they can all come together in a consensus, and the teacher is the governor, so we'll see the teacher will do it, or the students can override the teacher, so that'll be very interesting. So
That's
thank
very
you for your
important.
time. So,
Thank you, Senator Peacock.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
That'll be one of the easiest jobs we'll have.
All right.
All right, our next agenda item is reports and recommendations. Audit. Please begin with the internal audit presentation. Postway Nettleville will present.
Mr. Chairman, should
Go
I
ahead,
take
Mr.
it up as an audit committee matter and call the committee to order, or take it up as a,
We're taking this committee as a whole.
fine.
Morning.
Good morning. And you can comment whenever you would like. Talking to my, please. Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you all for your time today. My name is Kristen Burke. I am a manager at Postal Wait in Netterville, in our Control and Risk Advisory Services Group. And I've been the manager on our engagement with the Board of Regents since the start of our contract.
Good morning. My name is Laura Swallow, and I'm a director with PNN and oversee this engagement for the Board of Regents.
This morning, we wanted to give you all a status update on our internal audit plan, including where we are with the follow-up audits for contract year 1 items, and also where we are with our HR and personnel internal audits. This slide here will give you an overview of the overall status for our internal audit plan for contract year 1. When we met with you all back in August of last year, we presented on the outcomes-based funding formula audit that we had performed. And since that time, we have performed follow-up audits for contract year 1 items, and we have also begun the HR personnel audits as well. Our follow-up audits for contract year 1, the scope for this included follow-up of any of the high to moderate risk observations that were noted in the internal audits conducted in year 1. These audits from year 1 included the procurement and travel card audit, or the cart card, and also the audits of TOPS eligibility and renewals, and the financial aid special programs audit. To complete the objectives of this audit, we obtained documentation to support the management responses that were provided to any observations noted from the audits that we have conducted. This slide will provide you with a status of all of those year 1 follow-up audits that we have in progress, or that we have completed. As previously mentioned, the follow-up audits were only conducted on any of the observations we noted that were of high to moderate risk. And as such, you won't see the financial aid special programs audit on this chart, because we only had noted one observation of low risk from that audit. So here we have just the travel and procurement card internal audit, as well as the TOPS eligibility and renewals. For the travel and procurement card audit that we performed, our overall observations related strictly to, or mostly to, the lack of completeness and consistent enforcement of a centralized policy for the entire agency and training of that policy. In performing this follow-up audit, our team obtained the new centralized policy for the agency along with other supporting documentation, and from that determined that the observations noted in our year one audit were substantially remediated. At this time, we're still in the process of receiving documents and completing testing for follow-up of the TOPS eligibility and renewals audit. Once this is completed, we will be reporting the results of that also to you guys. This next slide is on our personnel and HR internal audit, and this was the last item that was approved in our year 2 audit plan. Since we last met, we've also begun the audits included in this and as of mid-December, we have conducted interviews with the director of HR as well as the LUMCON HR representative. We've also conducted process walkthroughs and on-site testing for LUMCON as well. Our next steps are going to be to complete that LUMCON testing and also to conduct interviews, walkthroughs, and on-site testing for Board of Regents and LOSFA in their processes. We will be reporting on any observations noted from those and presenting those findings and our recommendations to management. And then following all of that, we will then present our report and then the management responses to this committee. That concludes all of our status updates. Does anyone have any questions related to this status or the audits conducted or still in progress?
A couple of questions. Kristen, would you
Can you bring your mic?
would you describe, for the benefit of Regent May, who is new to our committee, what is the scope of the contract that Postal Wait Netterville has?
So PNN is engaged to perform outsourced internal audit for the Board of Regents. We are under a 3-year contract. That contract started March 1st of 2018 and goes through February 28th of 2021. As part of that work, we were responsible for facilitating an annual internal audit risk assessment covering all of the areas of Regents from operations, compliance, information security, fraud. All of those elements were included within the scope of our audit universe, if you will. Following the completion of our risk assessment, we developed an annual risk-based internal audit plan, and each year we look at that risk-based audit plan and make updates for the following year based on any changes in risk. Following approval from the audit committee for that audit plan, we conduct internal audits 3 or so a year per that plan, and then we provide that report out back to the audit committee.
And are we on schedule and on budget with that audit undertaking?
At this time, we are, yes, sir.
And what is the relationship between the Postal Wait Netterville function and the work performed by our Assistant Commissioner for Audit and Compliance, Elizabeth Bourgeois?
So Elizabeth is very helpful in making sure that we understand the right contacts and the individuals that we should be working with for each of our audits, and she helps facilitate those conversations. She helps us if we're having trouble getting the right people. She's very strong in helping us get what we need, and we really view her as a partner to our team.
Elizabeth, in the audience, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Sorry, sir, I don't have much of a voice, but no, it's been an excellent partnership. We've worked very well together, and I enjoy working with Laura.
Let me say that from my standpoint, I'm delighted with the cooperation between Elizabeth's office and Postal Wait at Netterville and how our audit function is being conducted. Are there any questions that any of the members of the committee or others would like to
I
ask?
have a question.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, sir.
In the summary observations, there are a couple of things brought out. Have we addressed those?
Which ones in particular?
Well, we say that overall observations, lack of completeness and consistent enforcement of a centralized agency. Have we responded and addressed that?
Yes, so
And you
that's,
maybe said that, I just didn't, I mean, you
Yes.
talk faster than I
His
listen.
hearing's getting bad. You know. Got his eyes fixed yesterday, but his hearing's
Yeah.
next week.
yes,
Oh.
as part of our follow-up, so those were the observations identified through our year one audit. As
Okay.
part of our follow-up that we conducted recently, we determined that they have been substantially remediated.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Regent. You-
One last question, if I may, is what about the relationship between our audit function and the Louisiana Legislative Auditor's Office?
I can speak to that. I serve as the liaison to the Legislative Auditor's Office, so.
Get a little closer to the mic, please, listen.
Yes, sir, sorry, I don't have much of a voice. I serve as the liaison to the Legislative Auditor's Office, so I assist them in getting in any information or directing all of their requests to the right person so that can be answered. We do have a good working relationship with them, and I try to reach out to the audit manager about once a month to get a status report on where we are.
So far as you know, the Legislative Auditor's Office is satisfied with our audit function.
Yes, sir. From what I understand, at this moment, they are so far satisfied with our internal audit function and our corrective actions for the prior report. However, that is subject to change at any moment as that audit is still ongoing.
Understand. Any other questions?
Okay. Thank you so much for your presentation. We don't need an motion on this. This is for informational purposes only. Next, we'll move to facilities and property. Mr. Herring, please present.
Good morning. We have two items on the facilities agenda this morning. The first item is the consent agenda. It contains 9 small capital projects and 2 third-party projects that were approved since the last Facilities and Property Committee meeting. And if there are no questions on any of these, the senior staff recommends approval.
Any questions?
Yeah,
Senator Ewing?
I've asked before, we have these, supposedly small capital, but how are they paid for?
A variety of ways. Sometimes they use operating budget dollars. It can be building use fees, grant money, tuition revenues. It's a variety of sources.
My concern is student fees on projects. It seems to me that we're building a almost insurmountable wall to climb over for a lot of students, and a lot of it is from fees and not necessarily just tuition. So at some point in time, could it be added to our report as to how these specific capital outlay projects are funded?
Yes, sir. I can, at the next meeting, I can provide an update of the year-to-date projects.
I think, I may be the only one that is interested in that, but it seems like to me when you look down here at the different things, and they don't seem to be very large, but they add up because we have them every month we meet.
Yes, sir.
And,
By law, they have to be under $1 million to qualify as a small capital project. But I can definitely provide an update year-to-date of what's been approved and how they were funded for each campus.
I just want to make sure for clarification, Chris, on slides 19 and 20, the item underneath each item tells you how it's funded, correct?
Yes,
So you're
ma'am.
going to provide a summary report.
Correct.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
wanted to make
Okay.
sure.
I see, you're
Okay.
answering.
If you
the
look
We
question.
have
on
some
your
technology
iPad.
issues, but if you look in your
Yeah, but
iPad,
I'm,
yeah.
trying to see it. Yeah, I see what you're talking about.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure to make that point, but we're happy to
Good.
provide a summary report.
Then the
Any-
question is moot.
Any other questions on this? Hearing none, do I have a motion? Moved by Regent Temple, second by Regent Levy. Any discussion? Hearing none, motion passes. Next, present.
The next item is a housing project at LSU Health Science Center, New Orleans. This is a public-private partnership similar to some that we've been approving over the last year or so. With this project, the LSU Health Foundation has donated 2 pieces of property to the institution that's valued at a little over $2.5 million. This will be the site where the housing will be built. Their current housing stock was built in the 1960s, so this will be a new 579-bed facility that will modernize the campus living experience for their students. The construction is scheduled, I believe, starting the spring, will take about 18 to 24 months to be completed. The project cost is a little over $98 million, and LSU Health Science Center nor the board will incur any debt as a result of the project. They're working with the Provident Group, who will be responsible for financing, constructing, operating the facility through the life of the project, through the lease. And there is a provision in the agreement for repair and replacement of equipment over life of the project. There's a fund established that will cover those needs as the time goes on with the project. And if there are no questions with this one, we recommend approval.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Herring?
I do have some questions.
Go ahead.
So what's the cost of this project? And it said who's to pay for it?
The total cost, development cost, I believe, is $99.2 million. The debt will be secured by auxiliary revenues generated by the housing. So the rental payments students pay for the housing itself will in turn go towards satisfying the debt service. And any other auxiliary revenues generated by Health Science Center New Orleans can also go to the debt service.
Okay. Is there any such project at the Health Science Center in Shreveport?
No, sir, not that I'm aware of.
That's all questions I have.
Thank you, Regent Pryor. Members, you've heard the recommendation of Mr. Herring. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Regent Weil, second by Regent Seal. Any discussion? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion passed.
There's one objection.
Oh, one objection. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you, Mr. Pryor object. Let the record reflect.
So you voted, right?
Yeah, voted with one objection.
With an objection, we probably should just vote.
Well, let's do a voice vote. Go ahead, Christine. Please call the roll.
We don't have to do a roll vote, just a vote, but either way.
No, I'd rather call a roll if we're going to do that.
Regent Adley?
Yay.
Regent Chabert?
Yes.
Regent David?
Yes.
Regent Ewing?
Yes.
Regent Levy?
Yes.
Regent May?
Yes.
Regent McDonald?
Yes.
Regent Perez?
Aye.
Regent Pryor?
No.
Regent Seal?
Yes.
Regent Solomon?
Yes.
Regent Temple?
Yes.
And Regent Weil?
Yes. Okay. What is the record vote?
12 to 1, yes.
12 yeas, 1 nay. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda.
That's it, Mr. Chair. I would like to point out, Regent Pryor, that the Health Science Center Shreveport is in the early stages of having a new medical education building built. They're just in the early stages getting the architect on board, but that's going to be a major project for the Health Science Center up there.
Thank you.
Is there any other business to come before the Facilities Committee? Hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Herring. Next is the Academic and Student Affairs. Ms. Leanne, would you please present? I'm a little under the weather. Huh?
The
first item under Academic and Student Affairs today is the consent agenda, which includes updates for the guidelines for the Classroom Teacher Enrollment Program, otherwise known as CTEP. And because this is not a standard consent agenda item, and for the benefit of our newer board members, Dr. Susanna Craig, Associate Commissioner for Teacher and Leadership Initiatives, will make some brief remarks and provide some context regarding these updates.
Thank you.
Great. Good morning, board members. The Classroom Teacher Enrollment Program was enacted by the Louisiana Legislature in 1993 and then was amended in 1995. In 2018, through the work with the Board of Elementary and Secondary Education, the Louisiana Department of Education, and the Louisiana Board of Regents, the Classroom Enrollment Teacher Program guidelines and application were revised to work in tandem with a new Board of Elementary and Secondary Education tuition program for teachers. This program allows classroom teachers to attend Louisiana's public colleges and institutions tuition free. All other fees must be paid by the teacher on a space available basis. The law also requires that if a teacher is to use this program during the course of a calendar school year, they agree to teach in the public school system for 1 year after receiving this benefit. CTEP courses may not be used to schedule any off-campus correspondence or distance learning courses. To ensure that the Board of Regents guidelines adhere to the requirements of the law, university registrars reached out to me with some potential wording changes to the actual application to ensure that the teachers who are receiving this benefit are earning coursework in the area in which they teach, or that it would be an education-related course. So after meeting with several of the registrars, we present to you these minor edits to the policy and application. Thank you.
You've heard the President. Any questions
I've got a question,
or
Chairman.
comments? Go ahead.
I noted that this is not able to be used for online courses, and I recognize that, well, in 1993 and 95, there probably wasn't much online courses. Can you describe why that, other than the timing of when the legislation was enacted, why would we exclude online courses if not for that?
Sure, because the intent of the legislation was to use space available. So that means that if a course on a campus is a graduate level course, let's just say they have 10 spots available in the course, and only 5 students actually enroll and pay for the course so that the course makes for the semester. That allows 5 spots available for a classroom teacher to use those spots available. And so the issue, or at least the intent of the legislation in the 90s, was that it would be for courses that are physical, face-to-face, on-campus courses. And at that time, we did have distance courses and correspondence courses, which were all that year's version of the online programs. And at that point in time, the legislature made the decision to not include those courses. That was the will of the legislature at that point.
And is this our interpretation of it, or has it been validated in some way? I don't know how we would do such a thing, but from my point of view, well, online courses have there is some capacity, I'm sure, constraint to it, or not, and you'd be using space available that wouldn't otherwise be used in online courses. Could you interpret it a different way?
I think the only issue here is the way that you enroll these courses. You have to wait until after the add drop date to physically go to campus and enroll for the courses. So I mean, I think there are many possibilities of how we might implement this program. It would change. We would need a change in the legislation to do this.
But I think it's a good flag.
Absolutely.
And so we will take that region and take a look at that, because you're right, obviously online is much more prevalent now, and so it may have been a cost control issue as well, but ultimately we want to make sure that we're doing everything we can to maximize use. So we'll ask Suzanne, Dr. Craig, to take a look at that.
Are we trying to solve a problem here in the clarification?
Yes, there were I'll just tell you some of the situations that occurred is we had some secondary teachers using this program to earn MBAs, for those, in one case, it was a situation where that particular program was not related to the area in which the teacher was teaching. In another instance, the teacher was a business education major. In that regard, that made sense. So by cleaning up the language is that it would be an education course or in the area of which the teacher is currently teaching. I think that was really the issue that became up. We had some that were attempting to use it for a law degree. And so these edits were at the bequest of the university registrars.
That makes sense. I guess my question then is if the problem we're trying to solve is not the method in which they took the courses, but the type of courses, whether it's an online or in the classroom, didn't seem to be the problem we're trying to solve. But here we're redlining in the word online to further constrain it, when maybe there is an opportunity to, would we still solve the problem by striking the word online?
This is totally up to the board to determine.
Yes.
We do not have to add the word online into the policy.
Yeah.
The issue is they have questions every year of if it's a correspondence course or a distance learning course.
Sure.
Can we take an online course? And at this point in time, online is equivalent to the correspondence or distance learning
Fair.
course.
Yeah, so I guess my question then, Commissioner and Chairman, would be, is it possible to simply strike online for now if we still solve the problem that's at hand to give us the flexibility in the
Yes.
future to amend this?
Sure.
Yes, I think that is absolutely in order. Let's keep the items in red on page 2. We can certainly not amend the item on page 1.
Absolutely.
Gives Dr. Craig an opportunity to go back to the campuses and registrars and have further conversation regarding online and distance education.
Do
Thank
we
you.
want to defer to just amend it?
Amend.
Okay.
If you're okay, Regent Solomon.
Hey, I'm fine with that. Let's amend it and just strike the red line that's on page
Perfect.
Do
1.
we have the proper language?
Thank you.
I mean, do we understand what he wants to do?
I do.
Remove
Okay.
that one word on page 1.
I got
Remove the one word. Any other, there's a motion to remove the word from the record.
And
Any-
approve the edits on page 2.
And approve the edits on page 2. Question? Oh, okay. Moved by Regent Adley, second by Regent Solomon.
Let's go for it.
Any objection, any discussion? Hear none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Senator Ewing?
Can I ask one brief question? You talked about that people are required, these applicants are required for 1 year to serve. Did I understand you say that
That
in
is
designated
correct.
places? How successful are we in carrying that out, and how is that monitored? And we're pretty, I don't know, I guess I have a little problem with telling people they got to go teach in a certain, or be involved in a certain place.
Sure.
Do you have pushback on that, or do we have good oversight, or?
I think the question is, I can certainly look into that for you. This program is monitored between the campuses and the districts in which the schools, the teachers teach. Part of the application process is that the school system or the LEA where the teacher is teaching, they fill out this application and they agree to do this. How much oversight on what's happening on the back end, I don't know at this point, but I can certainly do some research and find out for you.
Thank you.
That was put into place in 1995. That was the
Thank you.
change in 95.
Any further question? Okay, next item.
The remaining items on the consent agenda include standard staff approvals and letters of intent and program proposals in the queue. Therefore, senior staff recommends approval of all the items on the consent agenda.
Members, you've heard the report from senior staff. Do I have a motion for approval?
I have a question about it.
Well, question, Regent Pryor?
Going to your agenda item C1B1, routine academic requests. It says the LSU Health Science Center in New Orleans requests approval to establish a new Department of Interdisciplinary Oncology in the School of Medicine. And it's, what's the cost of that program?
I don't have that information readily available right now, but I can certainly send that to you today.
And have you looked at the cost that there is a Tulane medical school, a cancer center in New Orleans? And
Regent
perhaps
Pryor, Regent Pryor, let me say this. Any programs that come to the staff, we have a checklist of review around duplication, cost, workforce need, demand in the area. The programs are sent out to the other chief academic officers around the state for comments, and then that comes back to us, and we consider that in the approval request. So we do have a checklist that's thorough, but I wanted to make sure to share that with you.
Sure. I like to see those on this
Sure.
project.
We'll get them to you.
Before voting on it.
You want to see them before voting on it?
Yes. In case there's any debate or anything needs to be, especially the cost of the program and the duplication with the Tulane program and maybe merging the programs. I'd like to see the cost before we approve such a project.
Okay, so do you have a motion to defer
Yes.
this at this time?
Yes.
Okay, there's a motion by Regent Pryor to defer this until we get further information. Do we have a sec? Oh, Mary, I'm sorry, Dr. Warren. Mary.
Regent Pryor, I appreciate the position you're taking today, and as the board chair of Louisiana State University for the entire state, and hailing from Southwest Louisiana, where there is no educational institution established of LSU. However, residency programs, and of course, as I speak often, the 4-H and Extension Service, which reaches every parish of the state. I want to acknowledge to you that we hear you, and I understand the point you are making about access to education and health care through the LSU system in North Louisiana. It would dishearten me greatly if some progress that the board is ready to make today was held up by a conversation that perhaps LSU and you could have offline, and getting you the information you need for other programs and the work being done at the Health Science Center in Shreveport, as well as LSUS and our programs across the state. It would be very detrimental, I'm afraid, to everyone's work, the work of this staff, if we held up one issue over something that perhaps we can work on together in working for access for everyone and for the communities, the rural communities, and the communities in North Louisiana. I would ask your reconsideration on your objection on this particular item.
Well, I'll maintain the objection. I mean, if there'd be a second or not, and that's for any other individual board member to determine.
So
but I'm going to make my point.
Regent Pryor has moved to defer the item. Is there a second? Hearing no second, that motion fails. Do I have a motion now to approve the agenda item? Moved by Regent Temple, second by Regent David. Any questions or any objection?
I just like to make a comment.
Or comments?
I think, and I don't want to speak for him because he's quite capable of doing it himself, but I think what Regent Pryor, for me, I think what his comments mean to me is that we are not a rubber stamp board.
Yes.
And
Okay.
we should have access when we're voting on issues such as this one. We should have ready access to the documentation to support it, the supporting documents for a vote of this
Randall,
magnitude.
but we got a motion on the floor.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Randall.
Regent Perez, those are great points, and I don't think staff could agree more with those. We are looking at how proposal processes work, what academic, how they work now and how they can work better for this board to understand what the cost implications are, what access looks like to students, what the cost is to the state, looking at workforce demand, all of those things. And those are things that currently staff is working on right now to address both perhaps your concerns and Regent Pryor's. The other item I would add specific to this is that when it, and I certainly don't understand, at this time, don't have the information in front of me to answer the questions regarding the financial figures. But usually if an item like this is routine and it's an administrative reorganization, usually it's an administrative reorganization of existing faculty and resources and staff, so as to better coordinate the work within the unit. So again, that's me sort of speaking from a little bit from experience, but as my understanding is with these quote-unquote routine items, there's usually some basis for this so as to ensure that the items that come before the board are those that are among the most substantive, but that we also give due consideration for all of those variables that are involved.
Well, we would appreciate that, and to the credit of our chairman and our commissioner, we are an engaged board. We did receive these materials Friday and could have reviewed the supporting documentation along with everything else.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and we have an objection. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay?
Nay.
Okay, motion carries. Next item, please.
Can I make a comment?
Oh, Regent Adler.
I just wanted to thank the Madam Chairman for recognizing the issue, and I'm hoping that Regent Pryor and the Madam President will get together and we can discuss long-term this issue.
Yes.
Would that be a good thing?
Very
Be a good
good.
thing.
Thank you, Regent Adler, for your comments. Ms. D'Attilia?
Next, under academic programs, we have one letter of intent from Grambling State University for a Bachelor of Science in Cloud Computing. Cloud computing is the practice of using a network of remote servers hosted on the internet to store and manage data. For both individuals and companies, this reduces costs associated with data storage and maintenance of certain hardware and software. Cloud computing has quickly become the ideal way for businesses to deliver enterprise applications and the preferred solution to extend infrastructure. Completers of the proposed program will have acquired the competencies to support success in the workplace in the major components of cloud computing. Recently, this board granted approval for 3 LCTCS colleges to offer the Associate of Applied Science in Cloud Computing. Grambling has pledged to work with other LCTCS colleges to develop 2+2 programs, as they would be the first institution to offer this 4-year degree. Before I present the senior staff recommendation, I would like to invite GSU President Rick Gallo to the table, who would like to make some remarks on this request.
The Honorable President Rick Gallo. And
Jim Henderson.
Jim
Assistant
Henderson,
President.
double team.
Always
The
do
Honorable
better
President
with-
of the UL system. Thank you.
Always do better with my boss at my side.
Or as we say in the poker business, that's a pair don't beat any 3 of a kind.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Madam Commissioner, and members of the board. Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity to say a few words about our proposal. I would like to recognize, before I get started, Dr. Connie Walton, our Provost, Vice President of Academic Affairs, who's here. Also, Dr. Reddy, who is the head of our computer science, cybersecurity, and hopefully cloud computing departments, as well as one of our faculty members, Dr. Bania, who's here as well. This is a program that has been really exciting to undertake, thanks to the collaboration of Dr. Henderson, UL System, LCTCS, and Amazon Web Services. Grambling has an opportunity to participate in 2 different consortiums to offer this bachelor's degree in cloud computing. One being a Louisiana focus, and again in collaboration with LCTCS, and also an HBCU consortium that has been working closely with Amazon Web Services, which is the world's leading provider of cloud computing services. I think it's important to talk about the fact that our governor has led the charge in terms of recognizing Louisiana to be the new destination for high-performing technology companies, and I believe that pursuing this degree program fits squarely within the vision and ideas and support from our governor, John Bell Edwards. When you think about Grambling State University, and of course I know some of the older members of the board, not in age, but in service, have heard some of this before, but for the newer members to ensure that you understand the position of Grambling and our ability to offer this program. Grambling has been offering computer science since 1972. At one point, Grambling was the #1 producer of African American graduates in computer science in the entire country. We are currently, and have been for a really long time, the #1 producer of African American graduates in computer science and computer information systems in the state of Louisiana. Again, we are #1 and have been for quite some time. In addition to our long history of providing professionals in this area, in recent years, the I-20 corridor has fastly become the cyber corridor and has been recognized across the world in terms of the work being done in cybersecurity and in computer science. So between the Barksdale Air Force Base, Cyber Innovation Center, LSUS, Bossier Parish Community College, Louisiana Tech, Grambling, ULM, and IBM and CenturyLink, there's a lot of activity going on along the I-20 corridor, and Grambling is certainly positioned to continue to be a leader in that area. In terms of the workforce needs, currently there are projected to be about over 100,000 jobs today that are open in cloud computing. 49% of those positions are here in the United States, and between 2016 and 2018, there's been an 18% increase in salary growth in that area. When you look at the numbers, they're staggering in terms of the amount that is being invested in cloud computing, and the fact that there's a 40% growth in this area. And of course, whether you're Regent Levy, who stores pictures of his grandkids in the cloud, or Entergy, who I'm sure, and of course AT&T as well, and many of the other businesses that you all are involved in, have migrated more and more to the cloud, this area will only continue to grow. And I can tell you that as I go out and recruit students to Grambling, and we talk about our new cybersecurity program and the likelihood of cloud computing and the median income, median salary being $146,000, there is absolutely, this is something that our students and prospective students are very excited about. Again, we're the #1 producer in the state in terms of our computer science department, and we're very excited about our cybersecurity program that launched in the fall of 2018. Now, I know one of the questions that came up during our pursuit of cyber from this body was whether or not adding this additional program would have a negative impact on our existing computer science program. I can tell you that not only have we met our goals in terms of our cyber program, but our numbers in computer science have actually grown. So it has not had a negative impact on our existing computer science department, and we believe that adding cloud will only help us to continue to grow and expand our digital footprint as the go-to place, not just for African Americans, but for all who are seeking a high-quality education in this area. Again, these are from Board of Regents numbers just in terms of our production of graduates in computer science and CIS over the years. And again, these are just numbers that come from the Board of Regents. I know I'm talking really fast, but I know you all have other work to do, so I'm trying to get through it and then pause for any questions you may have. We, again, have partnered with Amazon Web Services. However, this is not proprietary, and so we've also been engaged in conversations with Microsoft, with Google, and with others who are also providers of cloud services, and the education we provide will be applicable to these other platforms as well. So it is not proprietary just to Amazon Web Services. But again, they are the industry leader, and the fact that Grambling has the opportunity and has been partnering with Amazon Web Services, I think speaks to the recognition of the quality of education we're already providing in that area. Currently, we are offering 10 courses that have some component of cloud computing already involved. One of the questions that came up again the last time as we were pursuing cyber was, how are you going to pay for this? We have leveraged our Title III dollars to invest almost $2 million in our computer science lab so that we have state-of-the-art equipment to offer the delivery of this education. So we've not come to you asking you for money to do this. We've leveraged our Title III dollars to invest in our program so that we have the equipment we need. And just as an aside, as we had our first pre-construction meeting for our new digital library, I think this just, again, speaks to the broadening of our footprint in terms of digital and technology at Grambling State University, and we expect to actually start moving dirt on Monday the 13th by Traxler Construction Company, which is the company that will be building our new state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind digital library on the campus of Grambling State University. Again,
Dr. Henderson, oh, I'm sorry, I thought you.
I'm almost finished.
You can talk as long as you want, sir.
If I talk too long, I might start losing votes, so I don't know how that works.
I was getting ready to say, sometimes you got to kick under the table and say, we're winning.
Thank you.
Dr. Henderson.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the opportunity, and to you and Commissioner Reed and of course Supervisor Donahoe, we appreciate you representing all of our institutions today. It was about 9 months ago, roughly, that after the announcement of AWS agreement with the Community Technical College System in Louisiana and their interest in broadening that agreement with four-year universities, I was on the phone finalizing some logistics for a visit to Washington to address about 18,000 of our closest friends with Amazon Web Services. And in that conversation, one of our contacts says, we really want to do something with HBCUs. And I said, well, I've got a great opportunity for you with Rick Gallo. And he says, well, is there any chance that he would come to Washington? I said, absolutely, he'll be there. I hung up the phone, I called Rick, and I said, you want to meet with the president of Amazon Web Services in Washington? He said, absolutely. When? I said, tomorrow. He said, absolutely. 8 months later, he has produced what will be probably the first HBCU four-year degree in cloud computing, and probably the second of any type of institution other than George Mason in Virginia to offer a program of this type. Now, my conversation at AWS was about future of work and how it is fundamentally changing the very nature of work. The great thing about this program and its design is it's preparing students, graduates, with the skills that are necessary for immediate employment. But it's also providing them the capabilities that will allow them to adapt to whatever the next reality is. And that's the work that we have to undertake in all of our programs. But to sit here at a table with Rick Gallo and say that Grambling State is leading the way in that regard is certainly a pleasure. And I just want to add my thanks and gratitude and congratulations to Rick Gallo for continuing to lead a renaissance at Grambling that should make all of us very, very proud.
Thank you. Regent Temple has a comment.
I want to congratulate you both on the success of the cybersecurity program because we had some fun getting that through. But obviously, you all knew what you wanted to do. You were very clear, and you have exceeded all expectations. Maybe not your own expectations, but you've definitely exceeded ours, and for the better. Second point, I can sincerely and greatly appreciate the recognition of Grambling, of course, being the first HBCU to offer a program like this, but also the recognition that it's only the second university of any kind, and make sure that we are very clear of Mr. Gallo's last statement in that this is something that is open for everyone. It just happens to be at an HBCU. Yep. So I'm all for it. I'm very excited about what you guys are doing.
Thank you. Regent Levy?
What can I say? Congratulations, Rick, and this is a continuation.
Microphone.
Congratulations, Rick. This is a continuation of the leadership that you've exhibited since day one. I was just telling Regent Seal it's going to get to the point between Grambling and Louisiana Tech and other schools in North Louisiana, we're going to be able to draw people from all over the country to come to North Louisiana. So although Wilbert has expressed some concerns about that, I'm more optimistic based upon what I'm seeing, particularly out of Grambling. congratulations. And if it's now appropriate, I'd seek a motion
Yeah,
to approve.
I wanted to say that my father's best friend is sitting next to me. My late father was a math major at Grambling and became an executive at IBM and brought that computer program to, you mentioned in the 1970s, that IBM
Wow.
sponsored to Grambling, as my father was the valedictorian and football captain of the '64 team at Grambling. And then they didn't have computers, and he got in IBM early and brought that to Grambling. I'm so proud today to see what you've done and this approval of this letter of intent that I hope is coming, and just so proud of everything that you're doing and the spirit you've brought to Grambling.
Thank you. Dr. Tarver.
Never sure when it's appropriate to speak, but I couldn't
You
let
can
all of
speak
these
whenever you
accolades-
want, as long as I'm sitting here.
I didn't want to let this opportunity pass to congratulate Grambling State University and its president and Dr. Anderson and others for the leadership they're showing in this area. I was taking good notes, too.
Yeah.
It's something that Southern University may be interested in joining hands with you and your institution. But I think it would advance the interests of this entire state and, of course, the interests of HBCUs. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Thomas.
Thank you, Dr. Gallo, for your presentation. And everywhere we go, everywhere we hear about how good of a job that you are doing at Grambling, how Grambling has, moved from down to up. And I was with a group of legislators recently, and you were the topic of conversations of, if you want to learn what to do it, with the colleges in Louisiana, look at Rick Gallo and Jay Clune and our man at McNeese bringing those things up as new presidents, and we're proud of everything you do. Now, I would entertain okay, motion by, we got a motion by Regent Levy, second by Regent Adley. Any discussion or any question? Any objection? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, Okay, Ms. Detillier, anything?
Okay, next under academic programs
Go ahead.
are two program proposals. The first is a BA in Art at LSU. Currently, LSU's School of Art only offers the Bachelor of Fine Arts, or the BFA, at the undergraduate level. The BFA is a professional degree for aspiring studio artists. The proposed BA in Art will provide a liberal arts-based alternative to the BFA for students who wish to pursue other creative careers such as in art education, art management, museum curation, graphic design, and digital media. Students enter the School of Art their freshman year, but those who are not later admitted into the competitive BFA must choose another major at the institution. Students will now have the option to combine their art interests with other career fields at the university, such as digital media arts and engineering, entrepreneurship, and psychology, just to name a few. Institutions in the state currently offering a similar program include Grambling, McNeese, Southeastern, and UNO. However, during the review of the letter of intent, CAOs around the state were supportive of LSU's addition of this program and did not consider it unnecessary duplication, as it would primarily serve students already at LSU. Next is a PhD in Rehabilitation Sciences at LSU Health Science Center, Shreveport. The proposed program was developed to meet the local and national demand for research-trained faculty in rehabilitation science programs, specifically in occupational therapy, physical therapy, and speech-language pathology. The proposed PhD will be a research-focused degree requiring a dissertation and dissemination of the findings of original monitored research by the student. At present, no university in Louisiana offers a PhD in rehabilitation sciences. The program is designed to serve current students in the related fields, as well as working clinicians interested in transitioning to academia. The institution anticipates enrolling 4 to 6 students per year, and given the high demand for practitioners and faculty in the field, the institution expects strong employment outcomes from their graduates. 3 independent external reviewers all supported the need for this program and the suitability of the Health Sciences Center in Shreveport to offer it. Program costs will be largely covered by clinical revenue. Are there any questions?
Any questions for Mr. Tillier?
If not,
Recommendation?
senior staff recommends conditional approval of the proposed BA in Art at LSU A&M and the PhD in Rehabilitation Sciences at LSU Health Sciences Center, Shreveport.
Members, you've heard the recommendation of staff. Do I have a motion?
So move.
Moved by,
I move.
I was looking, I thought you, moved by Regent Ewing.
I'm Randy Ewing.
From
I just
Ruston.
got- I just got here.
Moved by Regent Ewing, second by Regent May. Any discussion or any objections? Hearing none, the motion carries.
I understand.
I just met that guy last week.
It'll only get worse.
Welcome to 2020.
Yeah. Okay, next, Legislative Committee. And I'm chairing the Legislative Committee today, Senator Ewing, in case you didn't get the
Well, I have all
memo.
my notes down here, but you go right ahead.
Ms. Aaron, please present.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman Schauber and members. Yep, there we go.
Bring it closer.
My name is Erin Kauser.
A little closer to, the mic a little closer, babe. You can move, yeah, there you go.
Put it in your mouth. There you go. My name is Erin Kauser, and I am delighted to make my first Legislative Committee presentation to the Board as your Assistant Commissioner for Legislative and External Affairs. With the 2020 legislative session set to gavel in on March the 9th, staff has been busy conducting work there we go, to meet legislative charges set forth in numerous legislative resolutions from 2019. We have also begun to explore Regent's legislative priorities for 2020, some of which stem from the legislative resolution work and others that will address opportunities and eliminate issues that will propel Louisiana toward greater prosperity. Our first agenda item is an update on the 14 legislative study resolutions with which Regents has been tasked or is playing a role in. We'll first look at those that make a direct request to the Regents. These slides are ordered by dates due for reporting and submitting responses. The first, as discussed previously, and later in today's meeting, you will also receive a report on the study conducted in response to SR 190 by Senator Vero Peacock. This looked at the feasibility of establishing a new dental school in North Louisiana. SCR 92 by the other Senator Chabert, Senator Norby Chabert, formalized the Higher Education Maritime Campus Consortium Task Force. This group has been meeting regularly since its inception. A task force report including needs and opportunities is being composed and will be submitted February 1st. HCR 96 by Representative Falconer called for a study of student debt relief measures and recommendations for legislation relative to removing debt as a barrier to re-enrollment. The work to complete this study has resulted in several potential pieces of legislation that will be shared with you shortly as we discuss key legislative priorities. This report is due February 8th. Representative Cedric Glover's HCR 24 calls for a feasibility study of the establishment of a Southern University Law Center campus in Shreveport. And Senator Peacock's SCR 75 requests a feasibility study of the establishment of a law school in the Shreveport area that is affiliated solely with the LSU system, the Southern University system, the UL system, or any combination thereof. The National Center for Higher Education Management was contracted to conduct the Glover study with funding from the Cato Commission. A draft report on this work will be submitted later this month, with the full report to be presented at the board at its February meeting. The Post-Secondary Education Agriculture Technology Study Commission was created in response to SCR 81 by Senator Brett Alott. This group has met regularly and is conducting a survey of statewide industry needs. A report on the findings and related recommendations is due March 1st, with a possible extension of the due date likely with the author's support in order to capture more survey data and inform the group's work. While the final report submission for SB 243 by Senator Morrish isn't due until October 1st, the Dual Enrollment Framework Task Force set its own internal deadline for an interim report to be ready prior to the start of the 2020 legislative session. Proposed budget results and legislative measures stemming from the work of this group will be presented to you in depth later in today's meeting. Work-based learning is the focus of SCR 24 by Senator Conrad Appel. A group of partner agencies has convened to study apprenticeship, with several members traveling to study Colorado's highly successful career-wise white-collar youth apprenticeship program. In turn, a team of career-wise industry partners are scheduled to visit with business leaders in New Orleans later this month. A report with input and guidance for implementation of best practices is due February of 2021. Rounding out this morning's legislative studies with direct requests of the Board of Regents is a report that new data relative to TOPS reporting has been made available as a result of SR 10 by Senator Wesley Bishop. An MOU agreed upon between Regents and the Department of Revenue made this possible. The next 4 legislative resolutions are those in which Regents is involved but not responsible for reporting. HCR by Representative Frank Hoffman charged Bessie with review of TOPS policy to consider allowing anatomy and physiology to count in addition to rather than as a substitute for biology 2 in terms of TOPS awards and high school graduation. The Department of Education led the composition of this report, which is similar to a study and report done for HR 164 in 2016. It is shared with Board Regents for information purposes and is scheduled for report submission by DOE today, January 9th. LCTCS is the lead on a working age scholarship study called forth by SCR 10 by Senator Nancy Landry and SR 206 by Senator Morrish. LCTCS is scheduled to submit its report today. The Early Literacy Commission was formed by the Department of Education in response to SR 182 by Senator Jack Donahue and HR 222 by Senator Steve Carter, by Representative Steve Carter, sorry about that. 2 Regent staff members serve on this commission, which is looking at various opportunities and challenges regarding early literacy. Department of Education will submit a report of findings and recommendations on January 15th with a report of implementation due a year later on January 15th, 2021. Mr. Chairman, I would welcome any questions before I move on to the remainder of my report.
Thank you. I just want to make a comment to the board. As you see, the number of requests we get from the legislature every year, and I want to commend the commission and the staff for the time and the effort, along with all the other things that we have to do in the day-to-day activities of the Board of Regents, to go and get down in the weeds and handle these Dr. Tarver, you have a question?
Yes, I do. One of the reports referenced here in relationship to the Law Center proposition Shreveport being available, will those reports be available to the impacted institutions?
Yes.
So at the end of the month, just won't come to the board will forward copies to LSU Southern, whatever?
That's correct. When the document is prepared and submitted to us, as is our practice, we will share it with the impacted institutions, welcome any feedback and comments, and then the board, it'll be, of course, publicly available on the website as well, and then the board will deliberate on it.
So when this board takes up the issue, it will be in a regular board meeting?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? If not, do we have a motion to accept the proposal?
So moved.
Moved by Regent McDonald, huh?
It's just an update, but go ahead.
No action, just, it's an update. Well, no, we're not gonna do that, we don't have to.
Mr. Chairman,
Okay.
let me mention one other thing. Since we're
Go ahead,
talking about-
Regent Levy.
This issue of the amount of resolutions that come to the Board of Regents. Actually, 14 is a reduction over some of the previous years. And some of the requests for us, are urging us to look at and to study and to report, are extremely expensive if we have to farm them out to private things like NCHIM. Many, many years ago, I made a request that we start asking that the legislature recognize every time they make a resolution like that, we've got to do it, we're going to do it to the best of our ability, but sometimes that requires enormous amounts of resources be poured into that, not only taken away from the day-to-day operation, we have to go then focus and do it under a timeline, much like some of these issues here. would you continue to think about how we might request that the legislators think about every time they do that? And their response then, well, isn't that y'all's job to think about and research and give us policy? Yes. But some of them are such big undertakings, requiring expenditures of such enormous sums that we might ask or say, give us an opportunity to attach a fiscal note so that they would understand that if we have to go
That's a great idea.
hire NCHIMs for $50,000 or $100,000, and we've done this on many occasions. We try to do what we can in-house, but when we have to farm it out,
Terrence?
We don't get reimbursed. Do we get any money, Terrence?
So Regent Levy, to your point, House Resolution 227 of the 2019 legislative session tasked the Legislative Fiscal Office with polling agencies that have urgent request resolutions to assemble the amounts of money that it takes to perform these resolutions, and they're going to inform the legislature in a report at the beginning of the session on how much these reports are actually costing agencies over the years. And so the legislature has realized that, and they are addressing that right now through the House resolution that was passed this past session. So we do believe that this year there may be some reforms, maybe some fiscal notes, or maybe some funding available to accompany the request.
Excellent. Good news.
Yep, very good. Thank you, Terrence. Members, you've heard there was an update, so we're going to move on. Next.
Thank you, Chairman Schauber and members. I'll now proceed to Agenda Item 2, which is an overview of key legislative priorities. First, the budget. Commissioner Reed has communicated Regents' funding requests with the Governor's administration to inform them as they assemble the Governor's proposed budget. As discussed, the executive budget will be released on February 7th. Several aspects of the budget request are obvious carryovers from previous budgets that require annual allocation. Of course, our hope is that the amounts provided for those items will reflect an infusion of funds greater than the current year's budget with a focus on attainment and innovation. As a jumpstart on the work that was born of the Dual Enrollment Task Force, legislation and a funding request will be sought to build the capacity necessary to support our vision for a statewide dual enrollment framework. The draft report provides additional details on this item, and we encourage you to review it and share your thoughts. Lastly, as we focus on affordability, a nationwide student debt deferral practices study has led to several legislative possibilities. Discussions with the Attorney General's office and campuses are underway regarding how to ensure that debt is not a deterrent to re-enrollment and completion. We've also reviewed successful policy in other states to proactively inform students regarding debt in an attempt to reduce the amount of debt students take on. Making sure students are abundantly aware of the full cost of student loans before they accept them is also a desired policy change. In addition, an effort to #free the transcript has gained traction nationwide. Allowing students access to their transcripts despite some debt owed would eliminate another obstacle students often face when attempting to return to school. This could, for example, be a debt from parking tickets not paid over 8 years ago. As you can see, there's much work to be done and lots underway. At your February board meeting, you can expect a more detailed 2020 Board of Regents legislative agenda. We look forward to working with the governor and the legislature to move our agenda forward and advance our master plan goals. We'll share developments and pertinent information on the legislative agenda items with you as our plans are further developed. Chairman Schauber, this concludes my presentation. At this time, staff seeks a motion to grant the Commissioner of Higher Education and our board chair authority to finalize the 2020 legislative agenda and act on legislation as needed. I'm happy to field any questions or accept any questions that members may
Thank
Uh-huh.
you so much, Aaron. Members, you've heard the recommendation, and I want, Ms. Sonia, did you have a question? I saw you reach, okay. Moved by Senator Ewing.
Second.
Second by Regent David. Any discussion or any objection? Hearing none, the motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron, for your report, and welcome to the team.
Mr. Chairman.
We all know what lies across.
Mr. Chairman, why don't you speak just briefly to the importance of us doing a lot of orientation work with the new legislative members and many who do not have, and you mentioned this morning, meeting with some that they knew where the Capitol was, and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, Aaron and I kind of talked about that today. We talked about getting numbers and addresses and phone numbers to all the legislators in your area. I told her to get the complete list of senators and representatives, old and new alike. And we would like for everyone to reach out, let them know what we're doing, get engaged with your local legislators or anybody else you may know.
And particularly focus in on the money committees and the education committees in both chambers.
Yep,
That will
that's
be
where
our
we're
first
gonna-
line of attack, or encouragement.
Correct. Thank you. Okay, next on to statewide program, Dr. Boutte.
First up, for statewide programs is a consent agenda item. Region 6 is approval of a publication of the final rulemaking. You authorized the initial publication for this rule in June of 2019. This is to implement the Act 402 of the 2019 regular session, and this is with respect to the Go Youth Challenge program. So this is simply publication of final rule. The LOSFA Advisory Board reviews these publications of rules, and that's why this says that they authorize approval of this consent agenda item.
Members, you've heard the recommendation. Do I have a motion moved by Regent Levy, second by Regent Temple? Any discussion or any objection? Hearing none, carries. Next.
Good morning, my name is Terry Oaks-Galloway. I'm the Associate Commissioner and Executive Director for Lewis. Pleased to be with you today to give you an update on Lewis, the Louisiana Library Network, which is one of the statewide programs of the Board of Regents. We have a list on the screen here for your reference of all the statewide programs.
Terry, can you bring the mic a little bit closer?
Hear me okay?
Yeah, and let me just say this as Terry is introducing herself. The Statewide Programs Committee, as you see on the slide, has a family of L organizations that sit with the Board of Regents. I want to make sure that the board has good information about the statewide programs, and so we will have a rotation of these programs coming forward to share information with you. And Terry is first up in this 2020 season. So with that said, want to make sure we can hear your good information. Thank you, Terry.
Commissioner. Okay, so Lewis was established in 1992 as a collaborative project of the Louisiana Academic Library Deans and Directors. Initially, funds to establish the project came from the Louisiana Board of Regents Louisiana Education Quality Support Fund, or the LEQSF. And this was to move 5 academic libraries from index cards, drawers and all, to an online catalog searchable via a computer. The initial funding created the statewide program called the Louisiana Online University Information System, or LOUIS. Though the project has outgrown the original meaning of that acronym, it has continued to evolve, and we still provide major technology infrastructure for academic libraries in our state, for 47 member libraries, in fact. But this group of 10 Lewis staff now serves over 400 library employees across the state through our centralized services, including library technology management, cooperative procurement, and statewide licensing and negotiation for electronic resources like ebooks and databases. These activities result in significant savings for both our public and private academic institutions. Our central staffing and professional development model greatly reduces the number of library professionals needed at each individual library and allows the libraries to truly focus on serving the distinct needs of their campus, student, and faculty research. In 2015, the Board of Regents assigned Lewis an additional focus: affordable learning, or reducing the cost of instructional materials through the use of open and affordable learning resources, including library-provided materials. Today, I'm here to speak more in depth about that affordable learning project
in particular to give you an update on the Board of Regents' Affordable Learning Plan, which was adopted by this board in January of 2018 after extensive collaboration between the Board of Regents and members of the Lewis community and the e-learning task force. 5 key activities, as shown here, have guided our approach to incorporate multiple established best practices. Furthermore, the plan has a deep connection to the board's master plan. The project has an emphasis on affordability. We strive to remove financial obstacles that prevent citizens from developing their talents with post-secondary credentials. As you may have heard me report in the past, the average cost of that institutions estimate for college textbooks is $1,200 annually. In our state, this cost equates to an over $200 million annual textbook burden for students. In many cases, students cannot purchase those resources and research. In other states, it's demonstrated that as many as 2/3 of students have gone without textbooks, attempting and often suffering the academic consequences of trying to get by without. So what have we done so far? We've enhanced our central staffing and training model. Emily Frank has joined Lewis to focus on providing campus-level faculty and librarian training on OER, to manage our OER repository, our faculty textbook transformation projects, as well as explore open textbook publishing opportunities for the state. We've expanded our library collection of owned ebooks that are suitable for textbook replacements, and we've received supplemental funding from the Board of Regents, as well as utilized Lewis member funds to expand the collection of available ebooks by over 40,000 titles through evidence-based acquisitions models. We've also utilized targeted buying of individual ebooks already in use in the classroom. Lastly, we've added perpetual access to some smaller collections, including those specialized in engineering and computer science collections with unrestricted course use capability. To support faculty in the transition of classes to no-cost materials, we've issued 2 cycles of calls for proposals developed with support from sponsored programs and reviewed by 4 external reviewers working on state-level affordable learning initiatives. 17 projects have been funded with a 3-year impact of over $1.5 million for 8,000 students. Last year, as you recall, we worked intently on improving bookstore relationships, most importantly, textbook cost transparency and data sharing requirements. Senate Bill 117 was passed, and campus IT implementation guides are now in progress with Board of Regents to align our textbook data collection with existing student data collection procedures. This year, we've also explored other bookstore opportunities, in particular inclusive access licenses. We're seeing many campuses independently pursue inclusive access models, which can be one part of an effective solution when done thoughtfully, with student choice and faculty academic freedom carefully considered. We've been also aggressively pursuing pricing under this inclusive access model that falls under our Louisiana defined cap for affordable education resources, which is $29 or 4 times the current federal minimum wage. We've signed our first Louisiana inclusive access agreement this fall with over $4 million in potential student savings annually through a single publisher. We're working with other publishers to provide similar options to campus. Lastly, I want to share with you today the launch of our Open Educational Resources, or OER, repository, the OER Commons. The OER Commons supports discovery, collaboration, curation, design, and reuse of openly licensed resources as replacements for high-cost textbooks. Over 1,000 teaching materials were selected by Louisiana academic librarians and aligned to 250 courses in the statewide Common Course catalog. As referenced in the master plan, this streamlines the course redesign process for faculty. Research has shown that one of the greatest barriers to faculty participation in OER programs is the time required to identify high-quality teaching resources. The work of academic librarians in our state minimizes this time burden. The repository is now publicly available at the lewis.oercommons.org, and here you see, excuse me, a representation of the repository. If you can see here, in the upper left corner, we offer easy searching and alignment of openly licensed materials by the statewide Common Course Catalog identifier. Faculty can select their discipline and quickly locate high-quality materials for their courses, including resources developed by other Louisiana faculty. The platform also allows for faculty collaboration and creation and storage of new learning objects. So a syllabus for a business and communications course from Grambling can be revised and adapted by faculty at ULL. I want to highlight here some folks from the Louisiana faculty community. 6 faculty have been chosen for an OER faculty cohort program. These faculty in business and communications will take part in a faculty learning community this spring semester utilizing the Lewis OER Commons to design openly licensed syllabi. These syllabi can be reused and adapted across the state and beyond. All subject areas and disciplines will be invited to participate in subsequent statewide faculty learning communities. While not only aligning with the master plan, these projects and infrastructure are now serving us in supporting the goals of the dual enrollment task force. We've learned this year about some existing initiatives in the Louisiana K-12 environment, and we're confident that these projects will serve as a bridge between efforts and support the needs of dual enrollment instructors and students, removing a cost barrier to universal access to dual enrollment. With an infrastructure for growth now in place, as we look ahead to the opportunity to expand our outreach and services to dual enrollment, and as we put into place data collection procedures that will allow us to begin monitoring the impact of cost reduction on student level outcomes, I want to take a moment to acknowledge the state's success so far. Lewis has tracked at least $10 million in student savings across the state in the use of both OER and library-provided resources. 30 of our Lewis member institutions have participated in at least one initiative, resulting in 350 engaged faculty and over 100,000 students impacted. So I want to thank you for this opportunity to share our progress and open up to questions as time allows.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
So what's the difference between inclusive access and whatever it was that you had before? I read the description of what inclusive access means, and I'm not clear.
So inclusive access is day one access to commercially produced textbooks. So it's reducing the cost of those textbooks that are already in use. Typically what happens is students are pre-billed on their campus fees for access to the materials. Now, it's good for publishers because they end up with 100% sales rate. I told you before that 2/3 of students aren't buying the materials. So this is a way for them to ensure 100% sell-through of their product. So they're willing to come down greatly on the price to students when we put the fees on the bill at the start of the semester.
So what did they have before?
Each student identifies the method in which they want to purchase. So they can go to the bookstore and purchase, they can go on Amazon and buy a used copy, or they can choose to not purchase at all.
And now they have them automatically day one?
Day one access.
No delays and
no
study?
No delays.
Thank you.
Thank you, Regent Ewing.
I followed as best I could, and it's very interesting information that you gave us, and thank you. I've been concerned about the overall cost of sending a student to one of our universities or attending. Do we have data that shows the average cost at the institutions that we are associated with, and not just tuition, but the entire cost? I mean, they got to live somewhere, they got to eat, they got to buy a ticket every now and then to a rock concert or whatever it is. And, you know, what is the cost to educate a young person 4 years, let's just say 4 years here? And how does that compare with a similar institution, whether it's a regional or a flagship, say in Indiana, Ohio, Alabama? How do we fit? And which way and how are we going? You know, it seems to me that it continues to increase, and it certainly did when a few years ago the cost was moved from the state to the student or to the student's family. And I just wonder how we're going to have students with the ability to continue to attend, and what sources of support are available. I know about Pell Grants, I know about scholarships and TOPS. How much, what percentage does that cover of the cost? Is there data available to you or that you've run across that you could share with us?
I can speak specifically
to
to textbooks,
textbooks,
but I
and I'll
think
do
that
that.
Dr. Brumfield's going to cover those other costs for you.
Sure. So while Dr. Brumfield's getting to the table, Regent Ewing, we can send to you the affordability reports that are published. SREB report does an affordability report. They look at the questions that you're asking. What percentage of a family's income do they have to spend in order to afford to go to a community college or a four-year institution? I believe they do break it out by classification of institution. So there are a number of affordability reports, and we're happy to send those to you and to the other board members. And I don't know, Randall, if you have more, and then Terry, certainly around textbook affordability.
Thank you.
Regent Ewing, just a point of information on this. There is a difference between cost of enrollment and cost of attendance, and I think that is where the heart of your question lies, is understanding the cost to live and go to school at that institution versus paying for tuition and fees alone. Each institution does report and calculate a cost of attendance, and that is how students have their financial aid packages calculated and awarded to them at each institution. Of course, that also affects the level of Pell Grant that they can receive, as well as other any type of subsidized loans or grant funds altogether. So that is also information that is public and that can be pulled together if you're interested in looking at the cost of attendance at every institution.
Terry?
Well, I would hope that we were all interested in what our costs are, and also you know, how much money is available to the student through those sources. I don't know that I have some firsthand information because I just had 4 grandchildren go through universities here in this state, and it's pretty appalling. I mean, how much it does cost in addition to just getting registered and paying tuition and parking fees.
Duly noted. I don't know if Terry wanted to add anything to textbook costs as well.
Just that what we're seeing is what institutions are asking is in a 4-year career around $5,000 in additional expense for textbooks, and largely for many students that ends up in additional student loan debt, or as I mentioned before, the impact of not purchasing and trying to go without will impact the student performance, academic performance.
Okay.
If I might add a bit from the financial aid perspective, we put together each year for the legislature, and it's available for the board members, cost of attendance and cost gap scenarios by each institution in the state. So this gives you an idea of that student's total cost. It actually would give you a scenario of if the student had maximum Pell, if the student had minimum Pell, if the student had either one of those with TOPS as well. So we put that together, and that's a file that we could send you. We don't have it for 2021, but this is 1920 in my hand. We also work with the Board of Regents. The institutions report to you a breakout of their tuition and all of their fees. So we have a chart that shows with respect to TOPS, like it progressively shows it. We showed this to the legislature, and it was quite illuminating how much TOPS covers when you're only talking about tuition. Then when you start to add fees, now how much does TOPS cost? Then when you start to add the cost of room and board and transportation and the things that you mentioned, now how much does it cost? And it is very eye-opening how that ratio deteriorates rather rapidly. So we actually have that filed, and we can, Ms. Estee is listening, and I'm sure she can send it to you today.
We know we have a master plan, and it looks really good, and it's been complimented by nearly everybody that's seen it or talked about it. It is very aggressive insofar as having more of our people with educational credentials, a large increase. And cost has got to be a big, big factor in how it's covered. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I know a little bit about how much it costs because of personal experience. But we need, the information that you just showed me is something I've not seen. I've had a college president tell me what he thought the average student needed to attend 1 year. And I thought, where in the world is that money going to come from a family in Louisiana where the average family income does not warrant that?
Yes, happy to get that information, and we'll have an in-depth conversation around affordability for sure.
Well, I'm real glad that people like y'all and like our commissioner know that information. I guess I just kind of like to get in the choir.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Next, Mr. Tillier, you better ready to come back. Planning, research, and performance. Was that?
Last committee.
The last committee?
This is it.
I think she said the last committee. Okay, who's gonna take the wheel?
Okay, the first item on the agenda for PRP this month is the consent agenda, which includes one renewal application from a SARA Authorization Reciprocity Agreement institution, and it's Southeastern. For the benefit of our newer members, it's been a few months since we've talked about SARA. SARA is a voluntary agreement among regional compacts and member states. It establishes national comparable standards for the offering of distance education. It makes it easier for students to take online programs offered by institutions in other states while reducing the cost and administrative burden for institutions seeking authorization to operate in those states. So once approved, a SARA institution may offer distance ed in another SARA member state without additional authorization. Louisiana was one of the first to join SARA in December of 2014, and now every state, with the exception of California, has joined SARA. Each member state approves its in-state institutions and renews their memberships annually. Southeastern Louisiana University has submitted its renewal application for SARA. Regents staff have reviewed the renewal application and determined that it meets all requirements for continuing their membership in SARA. Therefore, senior staff recommends approval of the items on the consent agenda.
Members, you heard the staff recommendation. Do I have a motion to approve? Moved by Regent Temple, second by Regent Solomon. Any discussion or any objection? Hearing none, motion carries. Next item, please.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, is the consideration of the admissions criteria policy. Regent Ewing just mentioned the master plan and the importance of focusing on affordability. As you know, our big vision is to make sure that more people in our state have access to opportunity. And talent development means that we want to make sure that more people are not just enrolling in our institutions, but are completing our institutions. So the policy that our new Deputy Commissioner will share with you today reflects a request that you have made to us to do a thorough review of our admissions standards and exceptions. Nested in that is a belief that we want students to enroll where they can be most successful, and that we're focused on trying to move our state forward. As you know, we've been at this for some time. We've had good conversations with the systems and campuses. I know the management board representatives are here, and I thank them for their robust engagement and discussion. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask our Deputy Commissioner to share the information.
Yes.
We do have one request from Regent Adley to put the document in the right posture for the vote, consideration of the vote, and so at the appropriate time after the presentation, I'll do that.
Thank you.
When is the appropriate time for me to make another comment? After or before?
What did you like?
Okay, so even while I'm sitting here today, I'm getting questions from although I'm not chairing the committee today, but the committee that I chair that's been working on this. So we started this process in the summer when Dr. Denby started working on this. Those hours and hours of staff work, which has been fantastic, has gone into this report. There's hours of our board members asking questions and getting data. In the last 3 days, I've probably had more questions and more phone calls from individual regents on this policy than I've had in the past since our retreat. So I'm hesitant to say this, but I'm going to throw it out there. Given the information that we learned this morning, that we're not getting data for us to do an audit in January, but probably not until April, is that right?
We don't know when the data will be available, but the policy is separate from the review of the policy.
I understand. But given that, and given that few of us have requested a rewrite on a section of the policy, which is the section about the petition to amend the minimum standards, so we would not have that section to vote on today.
You would have the one sentence that asks that institutions have the ability to
Yes.
petition effective in 2021,
Right.
and that the commissioner and staff would come back to you with the details on that.
So we also do not have a suggested start date, and the members of my committee that have been talking to me here today have said this might be something we need to talk about, as we move forward. So we're missing some pieces of the final admissions criteria policy that we would be voting on. It is a very important policy we're dealing with today. And so perhaps we might receive let's talk about all the information we have today, but maybe delay the vote while some of these things are worked out, the rewrite on that. So I want to throw that out there and let some of the members who have been talking to me about it, say what they think about it.
Okay, why don't you let Randall present, and then once he presents, we'll discuss it.
Okay.
Great, thank you.
Commissioner, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, good morning. I'm pleased to present the revised Board of Regents admissions policy for your consideration today. As you know, following a spring 2019 student exceptions audit, the board requested a comprehensive review of the admissions policy with an eye toward working collaboratively to conduct a thoughtful review with a focus on admitting students where they could be most successful. To accomplish this, we analyzed the enrollment day, engaged with system and campus chief academic officers, and reviewed policies in other states. Historically, you'll recall the Board of Regents established minimum admission standards for public four-year institutions in its 2001 master plan following the creation of a community and technical college system in Louisiana. The new standards took effect in 2005 and focused on enrolling students at institutions where they were most likely to achieve academic success. It established the tiered system we have today with the flagship, regional, and statewide universities. Within the Regents' admissions framework was a small allowance for the admission of students by exception in each public four-year institution. At the time of their adoption, Regents recognized that students were more than just test scores and that campus admission officers needed the ability to access students' potential to succeed beyond the college core, ACT, and GPA. Minimum admission standards and exception allowances are foundational to our work and remain nested in our master plan today. As we undertook the policy review, the board requested staff to work with systems and institutions to explore policy amendments that would help address implementation of admission standards while recognizing the unique needs that may be raised by institutions. Between July and December 2019, board staff researched policies and worked with systems and institutions, including chief academic officers, to solicit feedback and recommendations regarding potential updates to policy. The policy amendments before you are a product of a thoughtful, thorough, and forward-thinking approach toward addressing the issues associated with this discussion and speak to student success ideals outlined in the board's master plan. Of note, you will see that annual reports will now use a two-year rolling average. This will allow the board to track activity as it relates to the master plan and will provide institutions with flexibility to manage enrollment of student exceptions. An additional amendment policy provides an option for institutions to provisionally admit as regular admitted students graduating high school seniors who complete a minimum of 6 college-level semester hours over the summer with a minimum 2.3 GPA. This also includes completion of a college-level math or English course if remedial requirements need to be completed. Policy also provides clarity and expanded flexibility for evaluating curriculum requirements from non-residents. If a student meets their state's high school core requirements, but not the board's if not the board's requirements, universities may substitute a maximum of 3 additional qualifying courses for STEM disciplines, which would be math and science, or non-STEM courses such as English, social studies, and foreign language. Confirmation of out-of-state college prep core must be included in the record. In addition, all universities are permitted to enroll up to an additional 100 non-resident students beyond the total allotment of their exception allowance. This change recognizes the interest of campuses to build diverse incoming classes of students without displacing eligible Louisiana students. Policy amendments set a flat 8% exception rate for students transferring from another institution. Also, institutions with demonstrated success will have the opportunity to petition for a change from existing admission standards on a 2-year pilot basis. In doing so, institutions will be required to provide evidence of student success with underprepared students, as well as the student supports in place that are necessary to serve an increased number of these students. This option will be available beginning fall 2021. In response to the board's request, staff have developed a proposed set of actions that can be taken by the board in response to admissions policy violations. Institutions in excess by 1% of their allowance will be flagged for review for management boards and the Board of Regents. The proposed graduated penalties are as follows. A reduction in the following year's exception allowance based on the number exceeded. In the second consecutive year, a reduction in the funding formula share per student will be applied. In the third year, a reduction in the funding formula share equivalent to each student's tuition and fee revenue would be applied. Board staff recommend that any action be based on future results, not retroactive. In scope, the policy amendments provide recognition of each institution's role, scope, and mission as defined in state policy. Furthermore, it provides alternative possibilities for students to seek admission to institutions. It recognizes the unique needs of institutions to diversify their student bodies through both non-resident and transfer students. And lastly, it provides clear expectation and direction regarding adherence to board policy. Thank you for your time. I'll stand for any questions.
Good.
Thank you, Randall. I just wanted to, again, say that, as you know, we've been at this since July. We have had a thorough review. We've met with the system and campus chief academic officers to try to work through issues. As you see in the actual proposal, There are a number of things that were specific to what we heard from systems and campuses regarding non-resident students, the ability for students to enroll in the summer and address any deficiencies that they may have, the encouragement to have non-resident students enrolled in our institutions, a review of the exceptions, and a commitment to ensure that Region's policies are followed. I welcome the conversation. I thank, again, the systems for their engagement and their participation. And Mr. Chairman, I'll turn it back over to you.
Regent Ewing.
I guess I would first want to compliment everybody that's worked on this thing. It is a very complicated thing, and I want to compliment our commissioner and the different people who have delved into it, because a lot of times it looks so complicated, some of us steer off. I would also want to compliment Regent Adderley, who really has tried to dig into the weeds and has, I think, offered constructive observations that helped us going forward. We've got a document here that, when put in place and when completed, because as I understand, we still have a couple of things that aren't in our final proposal that we have today, that I felt like that's kind of unreasonable to vote on something that's not altogether there. And maybe that's my misunderstanding. But I don't have any problem. I mean, we worked on this thing a long time, probably because it is so important, and it can affect a lot. From the get-go, I have wondered about the percentages and how that fit with our master plan, as we are seeking to make education, in particular our four-year institutions, more available to those who maybe have not had opportunity to avail themselves before. Also to increase the cooperation between us and international students. And it seemed to me that we almost were putting a lid on opportunity. So maybe that's part of my bias. I wish I had a better, clearer understanding how this is going to work. When I was in the legislature, we passed so many things that had the most wonderful intent and the most terrible practice that I ever saw. And I would not want this to be in that category. I would want us to not be here in a couple of years looking at how we might have done something different, how we might have given more autonomy to the people that have been chosen to run these large universities, and they do it every day, and they see the students, and they know what they're doing. I have no problem with them having to be accountable to some standard. But I would join with Regent Adderley in saying, are we ready? Do all of our university people know clearly about this? Have they read it? Have they studied it? Do they know what the implication would be? We found out this morning very few of them have taken advantage of it, except our flagship. And really, in a way, that's probably right based on where that flagship is located and the notoriety of that flagship compared to the rest of our universities. Nearly everybody in North Louisiana is wearing an LSU hat or a sweater. We know where LSU is. We may not know where some of the others are, and that may be one of the reasons we don't have as many people applying and asking for special consideration on being embedded. I would like, I will support our chairman of our committee if she moves to defer until next month, until this is all clear in all of our minds. I would support her on that. Thank you.
Regent Seal.
Dr. Brumfield, I'm going to pose a question to you that that I'd like you to assume doesn't have a predicate to it involving an existing university and an existing audit finding. If a university came forward and suggested that it wanted to explore the concept of holistic admissions and therefore create a wider window of exceptions than our policy would now permit, how would you respond to that university?
Well, Regent Sill, the way that I think it's important to remember that holistic admissions, there's no one uniform approach to holistic admissions. the premise of holistic admissions is to be able to take into account all the factors of preparedness for a student, all of the academic and non-academic factors that may go into who a student is. With that said, there is not a prerequisite that says for holistic admissions purposes that minimum admission standards or some type of minimum baseline criteria should not be considered. So when we talk about what holistic admissions is, that is a wide, varied interpretation that is often subject to what the institutions feel is in the best interest. So that's my candid response to that, and I think that minimum admissions criteria is, one thing I'll share with you is that if we peel back the policy and go back beyond the admissions exceptions and actually look at the actual admissions criteria that Regents has set, it does speak to holistic in some way, because it gives in-state students an option to qualify for admission either based on high school curriculum or based on test score. And so I think that there's already flexibility in that policy there, knowing that at many institutions, you have to have both for a baseline admission.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Waugh?
Yes, I agree. This is a very important issue. It's something we've talked. I've only been on the board for 1 year and learned a lot, but certainly not everything. And I've followed it closely during the year. And I think what we're doing here, I applaud the work that has been done. What we're doing here is setting policy for the future. And in my view, we want to make sure that we're all on the board, on board, comfortable with what we have. I have questions in my mind that I have not been able to resolve, but I believe that I would be able to resolve them with further information from your office, maybe from Terrence's office. And I would like additional deferral so that basically I want to be comfortable with what I'm voting on. And I think that's my responsibility as a member of this board. And I don't think today, and this may be my fault, that there's a lot in this policy, and when you put a lot into it, there are nuances to it, and I just want to make sure that I understand exactly how it's going to work from beginning to end. And I think that's important for all of us. And so I ask that it be deferred.
Regent Solomon and Regent David after.
The question, I guess, is for the commissioner is, if this board did defer this today, and I'm not saying I've got a preference either way in this question, what is the consequence of deferring it a month? Or is there a timeline that we're on that if we don't do something with it today, it doesn't take action and therefore hurts next year? Or help me understand the timeline and pressures of doing so.
Sure. There is certainly, so the will of the board is what we will do. There is no concern that I have, look to the staff, about additional opportunity for conversation. Let me say this. If the board feels that they do not have the information that they need to make the decision, then the shortcoming certainly is on me. I have tried since July to have conversations with each of you about this, and I want to make sure you're comfortable. I want to make sure you have good information. I want to make sure that every institution in this state has an opportunity to weigh in. That's why we've had numerous conference calls, numerous meetings to try to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to weigh in on a very solid statewide policy that allows us to address the admissions exceptions and standards in our state. This is a big policy. It's important. It sets an expectation and a framework for how we do our work. So if there is discomfort, if you all feel that there are still questions after all of the deliberation and the documents that have been sent out, then I want to make sure you have everything that you need, and I see no problem with an additional conversation.
Regent Davi.
And I was, am I on? Y'all hear me? I was ready to vote today. I kind of feel a little bit like you. I've been living with this issue for a while, and I know we all have, but I want everyone to feel like they understand it and we're ready to move forward. And out of respect and deference to you guys, I'd be for pushing it to next month. But I'd love us to have some real specificity as to what we want to know so we can be ready to go. Because I read this thing, bored me to tears. I don't want to read it again next month if a few words change, but I'm happy to do it, and I want to make sure that we have and I even talked to people at my alma mater, others, I thought we were all on the same page, but if we're not, I want to make sure we are, because I want to make sure everyone has notice of why we have this exception rule, what it's going to be, so they can make sure they cater their application policies to that. So that's where I am. I'm ready for us to put this issue to bed and move on to bigger and better issues, but I want to make sure everybody knows what we're talking about before we do it. So, and getting it completed, getting that last paragraph done, or whatever it is, might be important too for next month. So that's kind of my thought as we sit here today. As the first comment, I was like, well, maybe I think I'm kind of ready, and after I hear 3 people who I respect a lot, so they want more information, that's good enough for me.
And to Regent Davi's comment, we welcome any specific questions that you have. We'll be happy to take those.
I think the failing is not on your part. The failing is on our part to grasp, because you've been studying this like a professor would. And we get here and we're trying to make this paragraph match that paragraph. It all came out of a hotbed, and we know it, that stirred up a couple of years ago. And we are trying to look, because a lot of us didn't even know that was going on until then. And we're trying to look at it in a global way. And the failing is on my part insofar as comfort, not yours. You've tried. My head's just a little thicker.
No.
But
I do want to add to that, Commissioner, that
No.
I think you've done your due diligence. I failed to do my due diligence.
Yep.
And
we would feel more comfortable if we had a little bit more time.
Sure.
Look, we're going to do, as we said when I took this chairmanship a year ago, we're going to serve at the pleasure of this board. And if y'all not satisfied with the data and we need to dig more in the weeds, we're going to dig more in the weeds. And that's just as easy as I can put it. I want everyone to be comfortable with what we do. And this staff went through a lot. As you know, every time we have something like this, the staff has to dig deep and study and do everything. And this is a policy for all universities. And that's the thing that I want to make sure that we focus on. This is not only an LSU issue. This is a university issue and community college university issue as well as an LSU issue. So I happily will accept the motion to defer it for 30 days, but I think that we ought to, put this thing to bed. I'd like to, before you got a semester starting, you got everything. We want to have all the information and everything going so we can rock and roll with this.
I have one more question.
Go ahead, Chloe.
I have this feeling, because of the questions that I've received in the last 3 days, even at 5 o'clock this morning, is that and you may not have time because the staff is so inundated right now I know we have a lot of things going on, but maybe those of us who are not comfortable could have a time to sit down with staff and...
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, we can do that all the time.
I think if you see once we know where we've come from and everybody, I just want, it's so important for everybody to feel comfortable.
Sure.
And it is not a shortcoming of the staff in any way. I have witnessed the hours and thoroughness and trying to get everybody involved. So I want to compliment all of you and say thank you for getting me up at 8:30 in the morning for conference calls. I mean, I really, it is amazing to watch our staff work. But I began to feel a little uncomfortable just because in the last few days, a lot of questions emerged. So I just had to say that.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Pryor?
Yes, I just wanted to say that, y'all done a good job on getting us information. I'd like to hear from the presidents, like we did this morning. I'd just like to give them a chance to opine, that do they accept this? How does it affect them? If they're fine with it, I would be more comfortable saying I'm fine with it. But if they have anything they want to say, or the systems, LSU, Southern, or U of L, or the presidents, I like to hear from them one final time. Speak now or forever hold your peace before we make that.
That's
final
absolutely great. That's why we have this board, guys. That's why we have diversity. That's why we have people with their own opinions and their own mind. And if you're not happy, we're not going to jam anything down your throat. I know I won't as chairman. I don't think the commissioner will. And we surely know what the staff did and the work they put in. And I don't think this is slighted towards the staff at all. But again, I also think it's an issue that we need to do and put to bed. Right. And so whatever it takes in the next 30 days, wherever we got to meet, I'm going to say like Coach O, anytime, any place, anywhere, we'll be there. So
I will move.
Go Tiger.
I will move that we delay action on this proposal.
Regent Adler has moved to delay it for 30 days. This is a non-debatable issue. So we have delayed it for 30 days.
Non-debatable.
Not when you move to defer. Second by Regent Ewing.
Yeah.
Anybody opposed to deferred it for 30 days? Hearing none is deferred.
So that being done, everybody feels uncomfortable, needs to talk to our staff, right?
Very good. Next item, please.
We have two additional items for you. One is a high-level overview of the dental study. I'll ask the staff to walk through it so that you have an opportunity to ask any additional questions to us that you want to make sure that LSU is responding to in their comments. And then a very brief dual enrollment update. So I appreciate Malin for the work that she has been doing. As you saw, we had 14 studies, a lot of work, and so I appreciate the tremendous work that Malin Baker has brought and the talent that she has, that she's brought to the Board of Regents. So with that, Malin, if you will quickly walk through, and then we'll capture any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Reed.
Sure.
Good morning. I'm happy to provide a high-level overview of the staff report in response to Senate Resolution 190. Senate Resolution 190 of the 2019 legislative session charged the Board of Regents to study how the state can optimally meet the oral health needs of our citizens through the establishment of a school of dentistry in northern Louisiana. This study is to be submitted to both the Senate and House Committees on Education. To inform this response and to address the statewide needs, we reviewed several recent studies conducted by the Louisiana Department of Health specific to the oral health and dental health workforce needs in our state. Next, we completed an assessment of the dental school educational demand utilizing our knowledge of academic programs in the state, as well as data from the American Dental Association Health Policy Institute regarding Louisiana dental school enrollment patterns. Third, we completed an analysis of financial costs of operation of the existing Louisiana Dental School, Louisiana State University Health Science Center's New Orleans School of Dentistry. As further context-setting work, we utilized survey data from a recent workforce assessment survey conducted by the Louisiana Department of Health, as well as conducted phone interviews. Using the recent study published in August of 2018 by the Louisiana Department of Health titled Closing the Gap on Dental Health Professional Shortage Areas, Louisiana's Oral Health Workforce Assessment, one of the primary findings revealed that preventative dental care is a low priority among many adults. The national average is 67% of adults visit a dentist. while in Louisiana, only 58% of adults reported visiting a dentist in 2018, according to the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. This can be contributed to several factors, including fear, difficulty of access, and cost of dental health care per the LDH assessment. In addition, the low cost for low-income and uninsured individuals creates a barrier for access, according to the LDH study. The LDH authors noted Medicaid plays an important role in dental care access, but many practices do not accept Medicaid patients, which further impacts access to care. According to the American Dental Association, 3 elements must be adequately addressed to improve access to dental care. First, demand for the dental care. Second, the dental workforce. And third, the economic environment. The ADA notes that all 3 elements must be addressed. Resolving one alone will not solve access to dental care. In addition to the oral health needs of our state, we reviewed available information on dental health care workforce specific to North Louisiana, provided by Well Ahead Louisiana, an initiative started by the Louisiana Department of Health. This chart provides information on dental health professional shortage areas, or HBSAs. Essentially, an HBSA score indicates the shortage of dentists based on the population to provider ratio. With the scale ranging from 0 to 26, the higher numbers indicate a greater population to provider ratio. So in this case, a lower number reflects a better ratio. Of the 20 North Louisiana parishes defined by the Center for Louisiana Study, 11 have an HBSA score of 20 or higher. Data indicates substantial dental professional shortages in rural parishes such as East Carroll, Franklin, Lincoln, and Tinsall. The Louisiana Department of Health 2018 Oral Health Workforce Assessment noted that demand is being met for people who can afford dental care, but there is an uneven distribution in high-need parishes. Urban parishes have a higher number of dentists, while rural parishes have less dentists available per 100,000 residents, as noted by the LDH assessment. According to the American Dental Education Association, there are 66 accredited public and private dental schools in the United States. LSU Health Science Center New Orleans School of Dentistry is the only training institution for dentists in Louisiana. There are 16 public schools of dentistry within the southern region, wherein only Kentucky, North Carolina, and Texas have more than one public school of dentistry, and Arkansas has none. By comparison, Louisiana has less dental health professional shortage area designations, according to the Kaiser Family Foundation, than Texas, Kentucky, and North Carolina, all states with more than one dental school. Most first-year dental students from Louisiana attend LSU Health New Orleans School of Dentistry. Out of the 86 total Louisiana residents who attended their first year of dental school in 2018, 68 attended at LSU Health New Orleans School of Dentistry. In addition to degrees in dentistry, the institution offers degrees in dental hygiene and dental laboratory technology. LSU Health Shreveport offers 2 post-professional programs, oral and maxillofacial surgery clinical fellowships in oncology and craniofacial. 2 other institutions in North Louisiana, not affiliated with the New Orleans School of Dentistry, have dental hygiene programs, Southern University Shreveport and University of Louisiana at Monroe. ULM has both a campus clinic and a mobile hygiene unit, as well as Southern Shreveport, which also has a campus clinic which provides teeth cleaning and dentist referrals. The School of Dentistry operates 10 clinics, but none are located in North Louisiana. For this report, the School of Dentistry provided fiscal information concerning their key funding sources. This chart depicts the revenue of the dental school since 2008. The orange line indicates state funds, which declined from $13 million in 2008 to $8 million in 2013. As a result, the institution reports they decreased the number of faculty and supporting personnel, while concurrently increasing the student population and maintaining a healthcare facility to treat patients on campus. In August 2018, the Louisiana Department of Health, in partnership with the Louisiana Public Health Institute, conducted a workforce needs assessment survey of 365 participants of dentists and other healthcare providers, such as dental hygienists, public health nurses, and doctors throughout Louisiana. With permission from LDH, Board of Regents filtered responses from 20 North Louisiana parishes to the survey question, in your opinion, is there a shortage of general dentists? Looking at North Louisiana respondents only, 55% of the survey was completed by other healthcare professionals. 42% completed by dentists. The remaining percentage did not identify their profession. As shown in this pie chart, 80% of the respondents, shown in orange, believe there is not a shortage of general dentists. To further analyze the legislative question and to inform the quantitative data analyzed in this study, Regents staff conducted 14 phone interviews. In these phone interviews, we spoke with individuals from the LSU system and 2 health science centers, as well as deans of educational institutions in the region, Southern Shreveport and ULM. Based off the initial higher education phone interviews, we asked for recommendations for additional participants, which included local healthcare professional and dentists. Each of these phone interviews, several themes emerged. Each individual discussed the high need for oral health services in rural communities, as well as oral health education. Participants interviewed expressed a high need for dentists in rural communities, but emphasized a maldistribution of dentists. Several noted the higher volume of dentists in major cities, such as Shreveport and Monroe, while noting workforce shortages in rural communities. Finally, we asked them about the need for a new school of dentistry. Those in favor emphasized the benefit of a dentistry school clinic to provide services for high-need, low-income populations. Those not in favor of an additional school emphasize that increasing the number of dentists in North Louisiana would not incentivize service in rural communities. Based on available research, analysis, and the interviews with individuals throughout the state, the Board of Regents finds a need for increased access to dental care, but does not find sufficient evidence to indicate the need for a new school of dentistry in North Louisiana at this time. In order to meet the oral health needs of our citizens, the Board of Regents staff presents the following recommendations. Recommendation 1, increase access to dental care. We believe a real opportunity exists within the LSU system to foster collaboration and partnership to develop clinical offerings in North Louisiana with the School of Dentistry and LSU Health Shreveport. This level of collaboration will prioritize the healthcare needs of the region, and all barriers should be identified and addressed. Recommendation 2, target incentives to increase rural providers. Because the analysis shows a clear need for increased rural providers, leaning into targeted programs like the Rural Scholars Track Program, or RST, offers benefits. This program, created in 2016 in cooperation with the School of Dentistry and Bureau of Primary Care and Rural Health, was established to increase the number of dentists who practice in rural areas. RST recipients receive tuition waivers when they commit to practicing in rural areas of Louisiana upon graduation. The state should consider increasing the number of dental students in this program, creating a pipeline of dentists working in high-need rural areas across the state. Recommendation 3, understand the healthcare environment and address immediate and long-term needs. It is important to understand the overall healthcare environment of the state. We see significant opportunity for the LSU system to leverage its 2 geographically unique medical schools to coordinate efforts and explore opportunities such as increasing North Louisiana dental residency programs, increased class sizes, and/or new public-private partnerships to address the oral health needs in North Louisiana. The Board of Regents is committed to advocating for improved access to dental health care, and we look forward to working with the LSU system to bring forth effective solutions for the citizens of our state.
Thank you, Melinda, for the report. Dr. Tarver, you had something to say?
I have something to ask.
To ask, I'm sorry.
Thank you. Did you consider in your recommendations expanding opportunities for the 2 existing institutions at Southern and the School of Monroe in terms of increasing the number of students who participate in those programs who can also then help provide preventive dental treatment and that sort of thing?
The 2 programs at Southern Shreveport and ULM are dental hygiene programs.
Yes.
And so since this legislation was specific to dental in a school of dentistry, I did not explore that.
But
that is a possibility, isn't it?
It is, and let me say, in the recommendation, if you look at recommendation 1, it does talk about the collaboration that can occur between those schools that are providing clinics in dental health, as well as the 2 LSU Health Science Centers.
Yeah.
So we, as Malin mentioned, the immediate question on the table was new dental school, yes or no, but we did acknowledge that there is significant collaboration happening in North Louisiana, and interest in North Louisiana to solve its own challenge when it comes to dental health. And we see a partnership there, as well as the work that the LSU system will bring forward as potentially very fruitful when it comes to serving our rural communities.
Yeah,
Mr.
members,
Chair.
this morning, being that we gave Senator Peacock our word that we would receive the report and reserve judgment on this till LSU, the 2 LSUs get together and come back, I would ask that we receive the report, get a motion to receive this report, and we'll have enough time to
Mr. Schreiber, I did want to offer a correction to the report that says current institutional offerings related to oral health. And it's my information that Louisiana Tech has a dentistry program through its biology major. So I think that has been omitted, or y'all did not know that. And I'm hearing that from dental students that are in LSU dental school that went to Louisiana Tech undergrad.
Okay, well, we're happy to, as the chairman said, take any additional information, receive what LSU has to say, and make sure that we vet it thoroughly.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
So if you don't mind, get everything you have, put it in a deal, and we'll roll it up. Chairman Warren.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to thank you all again and acknowledge the comments from Regent Pryor and Dr. Tarver that as the Commissioner and I have been speaking on this for the last few days, it's very important for LSU to come forward with our report that we have not had a chance to review yet, but want to present to you all as soon as we possibly can. But that in the efforts of trying to continue to go forward with the limited resources and being respectful of the work that the governor and his administration are doing in helping us expand access to higher education and expand access for the health and well-being of all of our citizens, LSU is committed to working with not only institutions within our own system, but institutions across the state that we can do exactly what I think the goal of this report and the goal of this question and legislation is, which is to better improve health care for our children, for all of our citizens. So I just want to assure everyone that we are committed and we will get this report to you all as soon as possible, and appreciate being a part of this conversation and look forward to moving this forward, not only for North Louisiana, but I'll look at parishes along the western border of this state and the eastern border of this state that we have a lot of needs to address, and it's up to us in higher education leadership to take these questions on. So thank you for the time. Thank you for understanding the process within the LSU system. I look forward to us having this conversation next month.
Thank you so much, Sharon. Do I have a motion to receive the report? Moved by Regent Temple, second by Regent May. Any discussion or any question? Hear none, the motion carries. Next, dual enrollment.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make this update brief.
Update.
This is just to update on the work of the dual enrollment task force discussion at the joint Bessie Regents meeting last month. Earlier this week, Monday, the task force met to discuss the draft task force interim report. There was a rich discussion, engagement, and participation to provide feedback for this report, and Regent staff is currently in process to making revisions, seeking additional feedback, and working to create the next draft of the report in order for the task force to vote for approval or for amendments at the next meeting, which is on Thursday, February 20th. We'll continue to update on the work of this task force, and we'll share the report with you at the next board meeting.
That's
No. On the dual enrollment, as Deputy Commissioner Brumfield mentioned, we're looking forward to, we're excited about the dual enrollment work. We have had fantastic meetings across the state. You have a draft report that was sent to you. We'll give you the updates. And I thank the staff for their work, and the collaboration across the state, and the interest and the mobilization around dual enrollment has just been fantastic. So we're very excited
It
about
has
that.
been. Thank you so much. This requires no action.
I just had one question from this morning when we talked about it. It sounded like there was some slight downside for the future of a student who took a dual enrollment course, in that the grade in it would count
Commissioner.
if they enrolled in the institution.
No.
Is what I heard.
Go ahead.
But anyway, my comment is, I just believe, I absolutely support this, and we need to encourage it. And if I heard it right, I would like any barrier down the road to be removed, so that these students can come in and take advantage of it and not be penalized in any way.
Just for clarification, on the discussion this morning, the concern was a student who may graduate with the dual credit, but the grade earned through that might have an adverse impact on their college GPA. So you may pass a class with a C, right, and that's a 2-point GPA, and that's enough. That's a passing grade, meets high school graduation requirements, but it may have a bearing or an impact on your ability to receive or continue receiving a scholarship, because your cumulative GPA would have been affected by your dual enrollment performance.
Yeah, and my comment is, I don't think that should happen. You know, if we could remove that,
Yeah.
I think it would help dual enrollment. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, I will task the commissioner to look
Yes,
into that.
yes.
All right, thank you so much. Thank y'all. And next we go on. This is normally when we turn it over to the student for his comments. But he's not here today. He's up with all the student council presidents, student body presidents up in New Hampshire. I think we have a little slide. You have a little slide? Deal? There they are. Yeah, nearly 80 of our students currently in New Hampshire for the College Convention 2020. College Convention gives students across the country to experience the presidential primary process. The convention features visits from presidential candidates, campaign staff, members of the media, and political experts. You see a picture of our students with the Regents hat and scarves, and I want to thank the staff for all they did to make that happen. They literally cheered when they received them. As you remember, the staff generally donated during the season of giving to make sure students were warm. This trip is a great opportunity for our students, and from what I hear, they are hard at work and enjoying their time. We're excited to have the student. We'll continue to have a full January. Okay, tomorrow, Monday is the governor's inauguration. We've invited the students to attend that, but we've also invited all the board members. And I think y'all were asked to do the RSVP last week. And next, we have the DC trip coming, the Washington Mardi Gras, where also the college student body presidents go up there, and every year I join them and bring them around to the different campaign congressional and Senate offices, and it's a thrill for me to see these students, a lot of them that have never flown the plane, a lot of them have never been out of state, a lot of them have never seen snow, to come to the nation's capital and see the history. And I always like to tell each and every one, I was a student body president. Not a president, I was a student body member, Student Government Association. Billy Tozan was a student body president. Steve Scalise, only election he ever lost was for student body president at LSU. And so it gives some hope to those kids that one day that they can be sitting in those seats and leading this great state that we have. And I always look forward to that. As always, we just, I'm proud of what our students do. And y'all know my little deal. It's all about the students. And I will say it over and over and over again, because I don't think it's ever said enough. Also, you had an article put on your deal about LumCon, that just happens to be in Cocodrie, Louisiana, where I was born and raised, and I want to give a shout out to all those folks. They did a wonderful job. In fact, this morning at 3:30, 4 o'clock, I was tweeting. They did an experiment with alligators where they took 3 alligator carcasses and put them on the floor of the Gulf in 60 miles apart, and it was amazing to see that one carcass was eaten up by a certain species to the skeleton, and then another one was eaten by another species, and the third one was eaten by a great shark or something, and it just shows the different things that go on. And LumCom is bringing this to the world, that stuff that has never been seen before or heard before. This is not the first time. One time on one of their underwater trips, I think they found one of the largest squid or something. So, Google LumCon sometime and look, see what they do. It's very, very interesting, and I'm just proud that they're down in my area, and I'm proud that they're under Regents now. So, read the article. Next, Commissioner.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. First of all, as we think about our master plan, I'm excited that we continue to see institutions with record enrollment and institutions with record commencements or graduation rates. The photo you see behind you is where I had an opportunity to join Dr. Bruno and to greet the 772 graduates, every single one of them from ULM, to congratulate them on their degrees. And so we look forward to continuing to see more and more students who are successful as we continue to promote our institutions throughout the state. Tomorrow I'll be in Regent David's neck of the woods when one Acadiana is going to be talking about their attainment goal. They are the only region of the state that has set an attainment goal for their region, and we hope more regions will do that. 55 by 25, and so I'm looking forward to joining the superintendents in the morning from the region, the conference, and then post-meeting as well, as we focus on adult learners in that community. We talked about dual enrollment, and we had our meeting on Monday, and North Shore brought their Gator Lab so we could see their mobile lab that they are able to bring to the students. So one of the concerns when it comes to universal access, as you know, is how do we make sure rural students have access to academic and career and technical courses. We lose some time with transportation for students, and so the goal is to make sure within this year that every community college has a mobile lab so that they can bring the career and technical coursework straight to the student at their doorstep of their high school. So we got to tour a fantastic mobile lab, and we're looking forward to seeing more of those. We're very excited to cheer on the Human Jukebox as they were in the Tournament of Roses parade on New Year's Day in California, and so very proud of the students. As the chairman mentioned, we look forward to seeing the students at the inauguration. We look excited that the students are having such a phenomenal learning experience in New Hampshire, and certainly look forward to inauguration next week, next Monday, and then the big football game, I think, Chair Warner, is Monday night as well. And so just very excited as we begin this new year, focused on student success. We worked really hard, as you know, collectively to develop a great master plan. Now it's time to roll up our sleeves and get it done. I would also mention that I had a great meeting, and Chair Warner may want to speak to this, with the interim president at LSU, Tom Galligan, who has hit the ground running. I think he's on day 4, perhaps in the office, but he has committed to work diligently with us. I love the spirit of cooperation and looking forward to working with him as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. We are very excited for a wonderful week next week. Our board leaves this afternoon to go back to the original site of Louisiana State University to tour in Pineville before we have our board meeting for January at LSUA tomorrow, and we're very excited to join new Chancellor Correll and his staff at LSUA as they look forward to celebrating their 60th anniversary and coming up on 20 years as a four-year institution in this state, which is very important for all of us. And then we get on to the inauguration of the governor, and then many of us will be jumping in cars and vans and buses and planes and trains and everything to get to New Orleans to celebrate our LSU Tigers. We have had a lot going on at LSU, a lot of great recognition across the country with the success, of course, of the athletic program, the football program, and the unprecedented 60-year history of another Heisman Trophy winner, which we are very, very proud of, because this young man not only chose to leave the flagship in his state to come down to LSU and become a part of our community, but did so as a graduate student and completed his graduate studies. In fact, when he won that trophy the next morning, he still had 2 exams to finish before Wednesday. And he did so successfully, and he stands, I think, not only in the athletic world, but in the academic world, of how, true discipline and commitment, you can be successful in all areas. To address the interim presidency, as you asked me to do, the Dean of the Law School, Tom Galligan, graciously accepted our invitation to serve as the interim upon the departure of President Alexander. We are excited about the search, but more so that we have such a stable, confident, and experienced leader as serving as an interim as we go into the legislative session. I think the commissioner found that he's ready to study and get to work, roll his sleeves up, and work not only for LSU, but within the entire higher education community for the state as we get into this legislative session and go forward. So thank you so much for your time with him. I think you all will be very impressed. I'm hoping he can join us perhaps next month at this meeting.
When does your search begin?
We are discerning some very important questions at LSU right now. We've had a lot of stakeholders and board supervisors ask us to really look at what the appropriate structure of the flagship presidency should look like. So I am not setting a timeline on starting the actual search while we discern these really important questions and make sure we're looking toward leading an LSU that is the most efficient and forward-thinking LSU in this century, and the kind of leader that we are looking for and need in that position.
Yep.
But I will keep you all updated.
Thank you.
Thank you
I
all
also want to congratulate all our Louisiana football teams that did so well this year. Tulane won their bowl game, UL, Louisiana Tech, both had 10-win seasons, which had, excuse me?
And LSU's won one already.
And LSU has won one already. I was building up to something, but a lawyer always interrupts my train of thought. I don't have that formal training. No, but I want to give a big shout out to 2 of my dear friends that will coach Monday night, Steve Ensminger, and who I've been knowing since high school and have been very close throughout the years, and Coach O from La Rose, Louisiana. Lived 6 miles down the road from where my dad was born and raised in the district that I represented when I was senator. But LSU makes the whole state proud. The attention that Louisiana Tech, UL, and the other universities got nationwide is just unprecedented. And I'm just so proud for everybody. And I've argued this point since I was on the UL board many years ago when some of you weren't even born. But I said, when you have great athletics, you have great students. And it just does something for the morale of the university, the morale of the communities, and the morale of the state. And we're just so proud of everybody. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by the lawyer, Blake Davitt, second by Representative McDonald.
Got a lot of lawyers here.
No objection. We are adjourned. Well, by the way, I want to remind you that we have our next board meeting is the February 19th. February 19th.